you don't exist. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the fourth part of What If Deku Enters High School DXD. Special note, this fanfic is written in a masterpiece of Pleiades 1754 on fanfiction.net. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. It was the day after the entrance exam results came in. At school, Izuku, Asia, Chacha, and Katsuki were called in by their teacher to discuss their exam results. I can't believe we have not won, but 4 students from our school heading off to UA's hero course. The teacher congratulated. And to think you're one of them, Midoriya, it's a miracle. Izuku was surprised by the praise and became bashful. Asia smiled at him. Chacha also smiled, but internally, she knew the teacher only spoke those praises because more students from Aldera entering UA would benefit the school's reputation. She knew this because generally, Izuku got apathetic treatment before, and she experienced a similar thing during her lower moments. Katsuki scowled, still unable to wrap his head around the fact that Deku, quirkless Deku, not only passed the entrance exam but also stole first place from him. It had to be some kind of mistake, or that loser must have cheated somehow. Either way, he was gonna make the damn nerd fess up. Once school was over, Izuku stood alone by the school gates while he waited for Yumi and Asia. He couldn't wait to head over to the clubroom and tell Rias and everyone else the good news. It's all thanks to her and his new friends that he'd be attending his dream school. He was on cloud 9 right now, and not even a furious Kaken could ruin his good mood. Deku. Or maybe he could. Izuku turned to see Kaken, who looked like he was ready to blow him up. Then he was dragged into a nearby alleyway. "What did you do to pass the exam?" Katsuki interrogated as he held Izuku by the collar. "You must have cheated somehow, right? There's no way some quirkless wannabe like you could have made it in. Not only that, you just had to steal first place from me. So tell me, how did someone like you make it into UA?" But then, to his surprise, Izuku proceeded to grab him back by the wrist and put up resistance. "Kaken, I have friends who believed in me, supported me, and told me that I can become a hero. That's why I applied. That's why I'm going," Izuku declared defiantly, even as his eyes looked close to tearing up. "Like it or not, you can't stop me." Katsuki was actually surprised by that outburst from Izuku. "So, you really think you have what it takes to play with the big boys? Fine, be that way. Come to UA. If you dare, I'll put you in your place." He then shoved Izuku and let go of him before leaving the alleyway. As Izuku got out of the alleyway, he noticed Yumi and Asia coming in his direction. "Oh, hey guys. Is everything okay?" Yumi asked. She had noticed Bakugou walking away with his hands in his pocket while grumbling and figured something happened between him and Izuku. "Did something happen between you two?" "Don't worry about it. He was just mad that he didn't get first place on the exam," Izuku explained, giving an abridged recollection of the events that just transpired. "Well, if you say so," Asia said, deciding to just let it go, despite her concerns. "Anyway, we better get going. I want to go see Buchu to tell her the good news, even though we already texted her about it," Izuku said, trying to change the subject. And with that, Izuku, Asia, and Yumi headed for the clubroom as fast as their legs or tail, in Asia's case, could carry them. Along the way to UA, the three met up with Kaneko, Ajiro, Mina, and Itsuka, and eventually with Akino as they arrived at the Orc building. Inside, Rias was already present. However, she hardly seemed to acknowledge their arrival as she just sat at her desk, staring out the open window with a blank expression. "Is something wrong, Buchu?" Izuku asked as he noticed that she didn't seem to notice them. Rias did not respond, her expression unchanging. "Buchu?" Asia asked, looking concerned. Still no answer. Itsuka then got up close to Rias. "Rias? Rias?" She waved a hand in front of Rias's face, but still got no reaction. Finally, Itsuka took hold of Rias's shoulder and began to shake her. "Rias." "Huh? Wah?" Rias shouted as she snapped out of her trance to notice everyone. "Oh, when did you guys get here?" "Buchu, are you okay?" Izuku asked. "Yeah, I'm fine, Izuku," Rias answered. "I guess I spaced out a little. I read all your texts. Congrats. You're taking your first steps to being heroes." "Thanks. I still can't believe All Might's gonna be a teacher at UA," Itsuka said. "Well, considering he's been working in Musutafu lately, it makes sense," Izuku noted. "How lucky are we to get a chance to learn from the #1 hero. I wonder if I can ask for an autograph. I wonder what he'll be teaching. Will he share stories about his accomplishments? I wonder if he'll demonstrate his moves for us. Oh, thank you, whatever universal force out there, for this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." Izuku went on another tangent about what it might be like to learn lessons in heroics under the tutelage of his lifelong idol. Should have seen that one coming, everyone else thought. "Hey, speaking of classes, I wonder what the teachers will be like," Mina wondered. "Another big question is, will we all get the same homeroom?" Itsuka stated. "Hey, do you think Shitori Kaichu can get us all in the same class?" Ajiro wondered. She probably wouldn't mind arranging that as a favor, but the thing is, the principal is incredibly intelligent, and if she makes that kind of request, he might figure out something's up, so maybe you shouldn't get your hopes up, Rias said, bringing down the mood for the soon-to-be hero course students. "Don't look so down. Even if we're not all in the same class or department, that doesn't change the fact that we'll be attending UA, the #1 hero school in Japan," Yumi said, trying to lift their moods. She has a point. Besides, you can still see each other outside of classes. And, according to what I heard, the two hero classes occasionally train together, Akino added. "So enough of all this moping. Why don't we head out somewhere nice and celebrate?" That got the hero course applicants perked as the thought of a celebratory party caught their attention. "I know where we can go. Who's in the mood for some buffet?" Yumi suggested. The orc walked a few blocks from UA to a nearby Chinese restaurant. It didn't take them long for them to grab their seats and bring back plates of food. As Izuku got ready to dig in, he looked around to see the others, chatting with each other, laughing together, and recommending certain foods to others. Even though it's already been months, he still couldn't get over having friends like the ones he had now, to have fun and laugh with. Then his eyes wandered over to Rias, and despite her taking part in the joy, he could sense that there was a bit of worry in her eyes, as if there was something she was keeping bottled to herself. Rias then noticed him looking at her and gave a smile, but that didn't fool him. She looked like she needed help, and he wanted to help her, somehow. Later that night, Izuku laid down on his All Might-themed bed. Currently, he was the only one in the apartment. His mom and Asia were doing some grocery shopping, and his dad was out on the streets for his nightly patrol. His mind was still on Rias, wondering what exactly was on her mind. Buchu clearly has something on her mind, but what? I wish I understood her more. Then, he noticed a crimson light emanating from the floor and sat up. On the spot where the light came from, there was the magic circle of the Gremory family. A magic circle? Then, in a blinding flash of light, Rias appeared in the room. "Rias? What are you doing here? Is everything okay?" Then he noticed the troubled look on her face, confirming in his mind that she was looking for help with something, which he was more than willing to provide. "Izuku," Rias let out as she walked up to him and leaned on him, making him lie back down on the bed. "You have to take me." "Pardon?" Izuku requested. He needed to make sure he heard that right. "I need you to take my virginity, and I need you to do it now," Rias restated. Okay, he did hear her correctly. Rias wanted him to take her virgin. Wait, what? And before he could say anything, she had backed up and already removed her jacket. Then she unzipped her skirt before she started unbuttoning her shirt. Izuku's face lit up red as his eyes stayed glued to the sight of Rias undressing. She really wants her first time to be with me? But wait, how do I even respond? Am I not good enough? Do you not want to? Rias asked as she got her shirt off. The only clothes on her body now were a matching white bra and panties. No, yes I mean, but what are you doing? Izuku stumbled through his words. He couldn't help but note how the white lingerie suited her nicely. But other than that, he just couldn't find a way to form a proper response. I've given this a lot of thought, and there's just no other way, Rias said as she walked back closer to Izuku. What do you mean no other way? Izuku asked. And why me? Once it becomes known that I'm ruined, I'll finally be free. There's really only one other boy I know personally, but he won't have any of it. That only leaves you, Rias replied. You're seriously lacking in most areas, so I'm trusting in your potential. Besides, what I want won't take a lot of skill anyway. As Izuku was about to question Rias's logic, she got on the bed and right on top of him. Is this for real? Izuku questioned in his head. You're a virgin, right? Rias asked as she started undoing her bra. Uh-huh, Izuku replied. Neither of us may have experience with it, but I'm sure we'll figure out something that works. She then got the bra unhooked, exposing her large white melons and pink puffy nipples. It's okay. All you have to do is put yours into mine, right there. Izuku looked down to where she was pointing, his most important part being caressed by her thighs and butt. Then Rias took his right hand and cupped it over her left breast. Let's start here, I'm a little nervous about it myself. Izuku's hand acted on its own, slightly squeezing into the melon, which felt soft to the touch with a hint of firmness. He could also feel the nipple becoming erect against his palm. It felt nice. Take as much time as you want. They're all yours. Izuku felt his eyes becoming swirly as he nearly lost himself in the naked beauty of Rias. However, when he saw her face, he once again saw the troubled expression on her face, and his rational thinking process returned. That wasn't the face of someone longing to have passionate sex, it was of desperation and resignation. I'm not sure this is a good idea. Does that mean you're choosing to deny me? Rias asked. Izuku pulled his hand away from Rias and pushed her back by the shoulder so he could sit up. Before we do anything, let me ask you, is this what you really want? What do you mean? I already told you, I want this, Rias said. Then why do you have such a sad look on your face? Izuku asked, hitting a nerve in Rias. You're not acting like yourself. I feel like you think you have no choice, that you need to lose your virginity, not because you want to lose it. Rias tried to respond, but she couldn't fool herself for much longer. No, you're right. I guess I really was desperate. Then, a white flash appeared in the room, catching the two's attention. It was another Gremory magic circle, and from it appeared an attractive-looking woman. She had silver hair that flowed down her back, tied into twin braids, each with a blue bow at the ends. Her side bangs were also braided in the same way. Her eyes were red and her lips were painted in a similar shade. She wore a blue and white French maid uniform, complete with a maid's headdress on her head. Really, Rias, you're here with this lowborn? You realize Cersei is going to be terribly disappointed in you, she said with a disapproving look in her eyes. Who's Cersei? Izuku asked. She means my older brother, Rias replied. You have an older brother? My virtue is mine to do with as I please. How is it wrong for me to give it to whomever I want? Rias said to the newcomer. And another thing, I will not allow anyone to call one of my honored servants a lowborn. I don't care if you're my brother's queen or not. Noted, the maid said as she bent down to pick up Rias's clothes. But think, you are the next head of Gremory. Have some respect for yourself. She then put Rias's shirt on her before turning to Izuku. Pardon the interruption. My name is Grafia and I am also in the service of the Gremory family. We'll get out of your way. Now. Okay, Izuku replied. I'm so sorry, Izuku, for bothering you this fine night. Let's just forget about this, Rias said as she turned to Izuku. Sure thing. Izuku? Grafia asked. You mean this is him? Yes, he is my pawn, Rias answered. The one who's bearing the boosted gear and is possessed by the Red Dragon Emperor, is this small boy? Yeah, that's me I guess, Izuku replied. I will listen to what you have to say at my headquarters. You won't mind if Akino joins us? Rias asked as she faced Grafia. The Priestess of Thunder? Of course I don't mind, Grafia replied. In fact, it's only proper for a noble devil to have her queen by her side in times like these. Rias then turned toward Izuku one final time. Forgive me for putting you out, please. Yeah, no problem. Don't worry, Izuku reassured. Rias then gave Izuku a small kiss on the cheek, making him blush hard. Then I suppose I should excuse myself. She then turned to leave with Grafia. The following morning, as Izuku walked with Asia to school, he couldn't help but think back to the events of last night. I still can't get over last night with Buchu and that Grafia lady. I wonder what that was all about. He told his dad about the events minus the part where Rias tried to have sex with him and something apparently going on with her family. When he mentioned Grafia, Hisashi's expression turned serious and told Izuku that he would stop by the occult research club room tomorrow. After school, Izuku, Asia, and Yumi headed for the clubroom, meeting Ijiro, Mina, and Itsuka along the way. As they got close, Izuku voiced his concerns for Rias. "You're right, I think something is bugging her. If I had to guess, I'd say it's House of Grammary drama," Yumi guessed. "You think Akino might know what's going on there?" Izuku asked. "She is her right-hand lady, so if anyone would, it's her," Yumi told him. The 6 soon-to-be high school first years entered the building, and en route to the main room, they came across a very large door. For some odd reason, it had police tape with the words, "Keep out," all over it. "Hey, what's that?" Ijiro asked. "I don't remember seeing that door before," Izuku said. "Oh," Yumi frowned slightly. "That's where Butchu's first bishop currently resides." "Her first bishop?" Itsuka asked, turning towards her. "Oh yeah, I remember Butchu mentioning that she had one bishop piece which she used on Asia," Izuku said. "They're one of Butchu's original servants, but for reasons, Butchu was ordered to keep them here," Yumi explained. "They're actually a sweet kid. Only problem is, they're rather shy and would rather stay indoors all the time. So, that's pretty much what they do, which they have zero issues with." "So, in other words, a hikikomori," Mina stated. "Sounds like someone needs to man up," Ijiro added. "To be fair," Yumi began before her kind smile changed into a more serious expression. "Look alive. We have company." She then headed for the main room with Izuku, Asia, Ijiro, Mina, and Itsuka close behind. Rias, Akino, and Kaneko were already there, and so was Hisashi, leaning against a wall near the entrance. However, there was someone else whom no one expected, Grafia. While Rias sat at her desk with her hands clasped and a grim expression on her face, Akino stood elegantly beside her, while Grafia stood from across Rias. "Miss Grafia," Izuku noted. "Well, everyone's here." "Good," Rias said as she stood up. "Milady, if you don't mind, may I have permission to speak openly?" Grafia offered, but Rias held out a hand in a stopping motion. "Everyone, to tell you the truth." But before either could utter a word, a glowing magic circle appeared in the center of the room. It was different from the grammary circles as it was orange and had a sigil of a bird in the middle. A sound like the cry of a bird of prey was heard as flames burst out from the circle. Rias's expression turned serious as she noticed a man appear from the inferno. "Phenex," Izuku heard Yumi whisper under her breath. "Ah, and Riser has arrived in the human realm. I've come all this way to see you, my beloved Rias," the man said as he turned to Rias, who did not look happy to see him. From the way he looked, he fit the image of a typical playboy. He seemed to be in his early 20s and had a tall and handsome appearance with short blonde hair and dark blue eyes. One look at his clothes, and it was easy to guess that he was loaded. His clothes consisted of a red burgundy blazer with gold embroidery on the right, matching pants, and black dress shoes. Underneath the open blazer was a white dress shirt that partially exposed his chest. He then walked over to Rias and put a hand around her shoulder. Rias's face quickly gave way to disgust and displeasure as she slapped the hand away. "Keep your hands to yourself, Riser," Rias rebuked the man. "What I wouldn't give to slap you in your smug prick face." Izuku, Asia, Itsuka, Ijiro, and Mina were shocked by the venom in her voice. Riser didn't seem too fazed by this. As a matter of fact, her reaction seemed to amuse him as he laughed nonchalantly. "Ha ha ha, harsh as ever, my dear, but I know you will come around soon." Izuku, Asia, Mina, Itsuka, and Ijiro all frowned at Riser's treatment of Rias and understood why she rejected him harshly. Izuku, in particular, internally wanted to give Riser a piece of his mind for the way he treated Rias. Luckily, there was someone among them who had no qualms about speaking their mind freely. Who invited this gigolo? Various reactions swept through the clubroom. Rias had a large smirk on her face, seeing Riser's stunned face. Akino, Ijiro, Itsuka, and Yumi snickered quietly while Asia gave a short yelp. Mina tried her best not to laugh out loud. Izuku went wide-eyed, not expecting his father to say something like that. Kaneko gave a small grin as she snorted. Grafia didn't seem to react much at all. As for Riser, he glared at Hisashi. How dare you, knave, he hissed. Do you have any idea who Riser is? And what if I do, Mr. Riser Phenex? Hisashi calmly challenged. This gentleman is Riser Phenex, Grafia interjected, gesturing at Riser. He is a pure-blooded devil of noble birth, third heir in line to the House of Phenex. He is also fiancé to the next head of the House of Gremory. Lady Rias has been engaged to Lord Riser for quite some time now. They're getting married? A majority of the group shouted. Lovely. The tea prepared by my Rias's queen is most delicious, Riser smiled as he sat on one of the couches while taking a sip from a teacup. At the same time, he had Rias around his arms, who seemed to be looking for any excuse to get away from there. Thank you for the compliment, sir, Akino said, though she didn't actually seem happy. However, when she passed by Mina, she gave her a small wink. Izuku looked at Riser with silent disdain as he started messing around with Rias's crimson hair with his right hand, which only grew when Riser reached for her thigh with his left. That's enough, Riser, Rias said as she stood up. Let it go. Why don't you understand? I have no intention of ever marrying you. But my darling, Riser believes your family's circumstances are still such that you cannot afford to be so selfish, Riser countered. I will not bring my family to ruin. I have no intention of denying you your right to our name, Rias said. However, let me be clear, my husband will be my choice. Remember, it's imperative for devils to remain pureblood. We're still recovering our numbers from the last war. Your family decided on this arrangement with the future of devils in mind, Riser argued. My clan made this decision because they are in too great a rush, Rias argued back. For the final time, Riser, I will not marry you. The Gremory servants, along with Itsuka, Ijiro, Mina, and Hisashi, smiled at Rias's unyielding determination. Too bad Riser was rather adamant as well as he took Rias's chin into his hand. For the final time, Riser bears the reputation of the House of Phenex. Besmirching our good name is unacceptable. Hey, Izuku shouted at Riser. He and everyone else were ready to step in to defend Rias's honor if necessary. Riser doesn't care if he has to incinerate everyone in this room. You will return to the underworld with me, Riser declared as his eyes glowed orange and gave off a fiery demonic aura. Rias responded to this with her own eyes glowing in a crimson demonic aura. There is no need for incineration, Grafia promptly stepped in, causing Riser and Rias's auras to die down. My Lady Rias, Lord Riser, as you know, I am here by order of Sir Zetches, which means there will be no disruption of peace. Izuku was surprised by how Grafia easily calmed the tension between Rias and Riser. Even though she was a maid, she seemed like she could defeat both of them, even if they teamed up against her. Now he knew why his father became serious last night at the mention of her name. When told such an ominous thing by one who is known as the silver-haired Queen of Annihilation, even Riser can become somewhat fearful, Riser shrugged, trying to save face. Silver-haired Queen of Annihilation? Izuku thought in surprise, looking at Grafia. I definitely don't want her mad at me. My master anticipated that there would be a conflict of some sort, Grafia continued. As such, he has assigned me a last resort should communication break down. Yes, of course he did, Rias deadpanned. Would you care to be more specific? If my lady insists on putting her personal preferences above those of her family, she is to settle this via a rating game with Lord Riser. Rating game? Izuku recalled Rias mentioning something like that, and Sona also said the same thing before. It's a game noble devils play with each other. Long story short, they and their servants compete in battle to determine who wins, Yumi explained. Like chess, Izuku said. Exactly. It's the reason we have individual powers that are inspired by what we call evil pieces, in order to play the rating game, Akino elaborated. Riser has played through numerous rating games and has scored several wins for himself, Riser boasted. Unfortunately, my inexperienced bride has never even qualified for an official game. He knows only mature devils are allowed to participate, so it's not as if she's had much opportunity, Akino explained. So, you're saying we're at a disadvantage? Izuku asked. We've got more to worry about than that, Kaneko pointed out. So this is the only way I can earn my freedom, huh? Rias said before turning to Grafia. Grafia, tell my brother I agree to the rating game. I will inform him immediately, Grafia responded. Rias, I have to ask, is this adorable group the extent of your servants? Riser asked in a mocking tone. Some are. What about it? Rias asked. Ha ha ha, Riser laughed, and with a snap of his fingers, a much larger orange circle appeared in the room. In a burst of flame like Riser, 15 young women appeared from the circle, each dressed in exotic clothes or some other outfits that looked fit for cosplay, such as gym uniforms, maid outfits, kimono, kippao, etc. Riser has 15 pieces. In other words, I have a complete set. 15, so that means 1 queen, 2 rooks, 2 knights, 2 bishops, and 8 pawns, Izuku observed. Then he noticed a girl who looked similar to Riser, having the same blue eyes and blonde hair as him, and the elegant light purple dress she wore gave the aura of a princess rather than a servant. It seemed safe to guess that she was related to Riser, maybe his younger sister. Riser cast a smirk at Rias. See this, my dear? You and your servants would stand no chance against Riser and his lovely team. Rias cast a hateful glare at Riser. Are you insinuating my peerage is weak? I'm simply being logical. You know very well that Riser has never lost a rating game aside from the ones I allowed for the other team to win, Riser replied. Aside from your queen, all I see is a flat-chested lowly, 2 pretty blondes, and a plain-looking pawn. None of them can compare to my servants. Do not disrespect my family, Riser. You'll regret it, Rias declared. Family? Riser has heard that the Gremarys treat their servants like one of their own. Then that means they'll be part of Riser's family as well after we are married. Despite his unassuming appearance, I believe your boy can handle manual labor. And your girls? Well, I'm sure I can find the right outfits that would draw out their full sex appeal. That last part caught Izuku's attention. Not only was this prick insistent on getting Rias to marry him even though she didn't like him, but he also planned on forcing her female servants to essentially be his lust objects. Riser's lustful vision he had in mind for Akino, Yumi, Asia, and Kaneko really pissed him off, more than anything in his life. Has Riser somehow offended you, boy? In that case, I would be happy to hear out your grievances during the rating game, right before I burn you to ash. Enough, Riser, Rias screamed. Touch him and you'll die. Have I struck a nerve? Riser taunted. Very well, Riser will give you a handicap. You will be allotted 10 days to train to prepare for the rating game, where I will break your pitiful toys. Rias was unfazed by his taunts and turned to him with a defiant look. Riser, believe me when I say we will annihilate you. I look forward to it, my dear. Riser will see you at the game. With that, Riser raised both his arms as if already celebrating his triumph. When we next meet, we shall truly be man and wife. Growl. Riser suddenly blushed. Oh, dear, that growl from his stomach did not sound good. As another growl emanated from him, the entire opposing peerage disappeared via orange transport glyphs in the floor. Once they were gone, Akino and Mina both began to snicker. What did you do? Rias asked, an amused look on her face. Okay, so, when Akino was preparing tea for that Riser creep, I passed her some laxatives, Mina started explaining. And guess where I put 'em, Akino finished. How long will it last? Rias snickered. If I had to guess, maybe a couple of days. The reactions were mixed. Rias, Asia, and Yumi chuckled in amusement. Kaneko smirked. Hisashi slapped his knee while laughing, and Ijiro, Itsuka, and Izuku snickered. Once everyone calmed down, Itsuka thought of something. Does that mean your other bishops taking part too? What? How did you know? Rias asked. We noticed the room with the keep-out tapes all over the door, Ijiro replied. It is unlikely unless Sir Suches gives Lady Rias permission to unseal the bishop, Grafia spoke up, answering Itsuka's question. The bishop was sealed away for their own good as their power is uncontrollable. Rias, Akino, Yumi, and Koneko's faces all became depressed, which the others noticed. However, I believe that the problem of Lady Rias being short a member can be solved with a substitute piece, Grafia spoke up again, getting everyone's attention. Substitute piece? Rias asked. It is a special piece typically used in cases where a member of a peerage in a rating game is unavailable to participate, in which case, a reserve member can be brought in to fulfill that role, Hisashi explained. Unlike the normal evil pieces, the substitute pieces only grant temporary membership in a peerage during a rating game, and while they do grant the benefits associated with a specific piece, the recipient will not become a devil, meaning no demonic power or wings. On a positive note, the user will not gain weakness to holy aura and objects, Graphia added. I will have a substitute bishop ready soon, my lady. But no need to hurry, you have 10 days to decide. And with that, Graphia gave a small bow before taking her leave on her magic circle. A substitute piece, that would help, but the question is, who do I recruit as a substitute member of my peerage? Rias wondered. Then her eyes wandered over to Itsuka. Itsuka, I have a request, be my substitute bishop. Wait, you want me? Itsuka asked. From the way I've watched you when you occasionally trained with my peerage, you've got a great handle on both your quirk and your sacred gear, Rias said. Celestial regalia might not be long in his class, but I'd say it's still in good hands. Well, I'd hate for that Riser douche to get his way, and if you think I'm good enough, all right, I'm in. I'll be your substitute bishop, Itsuka replied. Rias nodded. Okay, now then, we have 10 days. We all need to train hard to beat Riser. Any way we can help? Ijiro asked. Well, I don't think I have any strings left I can pull to get more members for my team, so how about helping us train? Is that good enough? Rias asked. That we can do, Mina said. If you want, I can help as well, Hisashi offered. Speaking as a father, I'm not about to let my son and foster daughter end up as his servants. Also, because I can't stand him either. I can also give you pointers for a training regimen if you want. Thank you, sir, Rias smiled before turning to her servants. All right, Akino and I will prepare our training venue for the next 10 days. So everyone go home, get rested, and get ready. We cannot afford to lose this fight. Yes, ma'am, Rias's servants all nodded. As Izuku lay on his bed that night, the events from the clubroom were still fresh in his mind, and it still infuriated him how Riser only thought of Rias as some prize to be won. Mina and Akino's prank did alleviate the mood a bit, but it didn't do much to change the overall situation. He learned from Rias that out of the 9 rating games that Riser took part in, he only lost twice, and even then, it was because Riser allowed the other teams to win out of respect for the households his family was close to. It wouldn't be easy, and it was a fight that would decide Rias and everyone's future, meaning losing was not an option. According to devil laws, Rias and Riser would gain authority over the other's peerage should they marry. While Rias had no interest in gaining authority over Riser's servants, Riser, on the other hand, would take advantage of that law to add the girls of Rias's peerage to his dress-up harem. Izuku gritted his teeth at that thought. He absolutely refused to let that happen. Buchu saved me. Now I have to save her. He and Hisashi had told Inko that they, Asia, and the others were going on a 10-day last-minute pre-UA training trip out of town. Luckily, she approved of this and went ahead to prepare food and proper clothes for them. Then, deciding to put his mind at ease with a quick bath, Izuku headed to the bathroom. Once he got all his clothes off, he entered the bathroom, only to find that Asia was already in there. Izuku's mind went blank upon seeing her nude form. He could see how Asia's snake tail started right below her supple round butt cheeks. He soon snapped out of it when he realized that Asia could see his privates. Yep. Izuku let out a girly scream as redness overtook his face before covering his groin and turning away. Excuse me, sorry for the intrusion. But before he could leave, Asia grabbed his wrist with the tip of her tail. I'm so sorry, Asia said. I've never seen a man's, thing before. I'm all aflutter now, I'm sorry. No, it's my fault. I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing, and I didn't know you were in here. I'm the one who's sorry. Well, should we make the most of it? Asia asked as she tightened her hold on Izuku a little. Huh? What do you mean by that? You want me to stay? Izuku asked, still keeping his back to her. We've been living here for months now, and I'm sure you've heard it before. They say taking a bath together can bring people a lot closer. Say what? Izuku asked. By interacting during a bath, you're supposed to understand each other or something. What does she want to understand? Izuku wondered as he desperately kept his eyes closed. I just want to understand you on a deeper level, Asia said as she pressed her chest onto Izuku's back. As Izuku felt 2 pillows of flesh along with erect nipples on his back, He was more than just tomato red in the face. Now, steam was starting to come out from his ears as well. Also, I'm scared, Asia admitted, causing Izuku to calm down a bit at the sudden change of subject. If we lose, then Rias, us, and everyone. But before Asia could finish, Izuku turned around to face her. We won't lose, I swear, he promised. I won't let Riser have his way with you, Rias, or any of our friends. Oh, Izuku, Asia said, feeling better after hearing Izuku's reassuring words. Then, Izuku remembered where he was, and he realized that he had a full frontal view of Asia's nude form. Izuku's face once again lit up bright red, steam burst out his eardrums, and his eyes became swirly as the stimulation became too much for him and he fainted on the bathroom floor. Izuku, Izuku, Asia shouted in concern. Despite the incident in the bathroom, Izuku still managed to sleep that night somehow. The next morning after breakfast, Izuku and Asia, along with Hisashi, met up with their friends at the clubroom. Hisashi revealed that he had some business to take care of, but he didn't say much about it other than that it was a surprise and reassured that it was for the good of Rias and her peerage. And so, the orc started making their way to their destination first. It was on a mountain outside of Musutafu, where a private villa owned by the Gremory family stood. The group was currently hiking there, opting to use the trek up the mountain for strength and stamina exercise. Rias, Akino, Mina, and Asia held light luggage that didn't give them much trouble. The ones carrying the heavier loads were Izuku, Yumi, Itsuka, Ijiro, and Kuniko. Izuku trudged as he panted, beads of sweat rolling down his face. You're almost there. Just a few more feet, Rias encouraged as she turned back to wave at Izuku. Visualize, Izuku, Akino added. Coming, Izuku responded. Rias, should I go get some of those bags for him? Asia asked in concern. He'll be okay. He needs to learn to carry that much on his own, Rias said. On your right, Yumi said as she passed by Izuku. Her luggage was slightly smaller than his. Plus, being a knight gave her strong legs. Then, Ijiro caught up to Izuku as well. Come on, pick up the pace, bro. The black-haired boy said. If you think this is bad, then don't look behind you, Itsuka warned before leaving him behind. Move it, Kuniko said, walking past him with her share of the cargo. She showed no signs of struggling even with her petite stature as she carried a bag that seemed as big as a car. Izuku nearly fell on his back, but he managed to get his balance back as he worked harder to not fall too much behind. Soon, the group arrived at their destination. It was a two-story complex with white and beige walls with blue floor tiles, balconies on all sides, and trimmed bushes, with white steel window frames for each window frame. There was a tunnel-like driveway on the left-hand side that led around the back where there was likely a garage. It oversaw a wide field that was perfect for training purposes. There was even a lake nearby with a dome-roofed gazebo. Wow, how beautiful, Asia gushed at the sight of the villa. We get to bunk here while we train? Mina asked, looking at the place in awe. Man, your family must be loaded. Well, let me say this is nothing compared to home. Wait until you see it, Rias said, almost boasting. All right, you guys, let's head inside and get going on this training. Yes, ma'am, everyone obeyed. After everyone got changed into training clothes, they met up at the field outside. First up, it was Izuku against Yumi in sword training. The two stood a few meters apart, each holding up a bakken against the other. Izuku raised his wooden sword and charged at Yumi, intending to strike her with a downward blow. However, she managed to parry that strike and his next blows as well. You're a little off, Yumi informed. Don't limit your focus to just the sword. Keep an eye on your opponent. Right, Izuku then tried to predict how Yumi might dodge or counter his attack, and he managed to get closer to striking her. Meanwhile, Ijiro was chosen as Kaniko's sparring partner. Remember, despite Kaniko's size, her rook piece gives her unparalleled strength and defense. Even with your hardening quirk, you might want to watch out, Rias informed. Yeah, I've already seen what she can do, Ijiro said, remembering the fight from the church as he activated his quirk to make his body rock hard. Kaniko then took a fighting stance, pulling her right fist back before landing a solid punch on Ijiro, who was forced to take a step back from the force of the blow. Ooh, yeah, she definitely hits like a powerhouse, Ijiro commented. Regardless, he could keep going. Come on, Kaneko, I can still take it, bring it. Kaneko nodded and resumed landing punches and kicks on him. This training actually served to benefit both parties involved, as while Kaneko worked to improve her combat abilities, each blow she dealt to Ijiro would increase his hardened form's durability. Meanwhile, Akino was tutoring Asia in using magic. The very first step is to become aware of the aura and magic surrounding you and try to stream it to a focal point, Akino explained. Let the image of light flow through you and be released as magical power. Asia brought her hands together to focus, and rather quickly, she managed to form a small orb of green light. I think I did it. Awesome. Look at you go with your little green light, Akino praised. I think you have a lot of natural talent for this, Asia. Lastly, Rias had Mina and Itsuka as her training partners. Okay, girls. For this exercise, I want you to help me with defensive training. And feel free to move around while going on the offensive. That'll just make me work harder. You got it, Mina and Itsuka responded. Itsuka activated her sacred gear and changed into Aries form. Other than healing, my wool has another ability. It can lull its targets into a relaxed state, causing them to lower their guards. Great. Now, without further ado, Rias said, ready to begin. Mina and Itsuka then got a few feet away from Rias and fired a weak acid and clumps of wool at her. Rias, with a swipe of her hand, formed a wave of destructive energy to obliterate the acid spray, and then with her other hand, formed a single big sphere of power of destruction to disintegrate the wool attack. Both Mina and Itsuka were surprised by how Rias was able to defend against both of their attacks at the same time. Come on, keep up the pressure. There's still plenty to improve, so let's get to it, Rias shouted. Right, both girls shouted as they resumed their offense against the older girl. Eventually, afternoon rolled around and currently, Izuku was sparring against Kaneko, though it was mostly in her favor. Kaneko knew how to fight better than Izuku did, so she managed to hit and get him into a lock more than a few times. However, that didn't mean Izuku was doing poorly, and as a matter of fact, he managed to land a few hits on her every now and then, which Kaneko commended him for. I see you've been training hard. Izuku turned at the sound of his father's voice, and sure enough, Hisashi had arrived. Dad, you're here, Izuku said. So, what exactly did you leave for? No spoilers, Hisashi replied, to his son's frustration. Anyway, Rias asked me to fetch you too. She and Akino are getting dinner ready. With that, Izuku and Kaneko followed Hisashi back to the villa, where there was a grand meal waiting for them. After dinner, it was bath time, and all the hard-working teens were eager to soak in the hot, mineral-rich water and let all their fatigues wash away. A large wall separated the baths between genders. Izuku, Ijiro, and Hisashi were on one side of the wall, while the girls occupied the other. This was such a good idea. We haven't done this in forever, Akino said with a content smile as she sat in the water. This is paradise, Mina moaned in bliss. I hope it melts away some of the fatigue of training at least. You've all been working so hard, Rias said. Well, I'm certainly feeling it, Itsuka said as she stretched her arms. Nothing like a hot bath to do the trick, Yumi added as she cupped her large melons in her hands. Meanwhile, at the shower stalls, Asia eyed all the big melon girls and looked down at her more modest-sized pair before letting out a sigh. Sad you're not on the Double D team, Kaneko asked while scrubbing herself. Asia noticed that Kaneko's melons were also on the smaller side, smaller than hers actually. Yeah, I guess, a little, Asia replied. You know, the way you used your quirks today was impressive, Yumi said to Itsuka and Mina. Thanks, and speaking of quirks, what's yours anyway, Yumi? Mina asked. Yumi smiled as she stood up. Here, I'll show you. Then, Yumi's body blew up like a balloon, becoming almost completely spherical and twice her normal height. Even her melons expanded, growing bigger than Rias and Akino's. Yumi was now a human balloon with a head, melons, hands, and feet. As you can see, it's called Balloon Body. It's certainly fascinating, Itsuka said, having to look up just to see Yumi's face. Mina pressed at Yumi's body with her hand, and when she lifted it, Yumi's inflated belly sprung right back into shape, causing Yumi to let out a giggle from how it tickled a little. Wow, so springy. It also lets me bounce back blunt attacks, though sharp ones still hurt me. And conveniently, it makes my clothes expand as well, so I don't have to worry about ripping them. Yumi then shrunk back to her normal size. If you want to know my quirk, it's iron sand, Akino added. I can make iron sand, but that's about it. I can't manipulate it or anything like that. What about you, Kaneko? Itsuka asked. Don't have one. I was never human before, Kaneko admitted. I still get around fine regardless. You're not human. I never would have noticed, Asia commented. The next morning, everyone was back out in the field for training. Hisashi called up Izuku first, and they stood a distance from each other, each holding onto a baken. Before we get started, champ, let me say that you're more versatile than anyone here, which means you have more to master to reach your full potential as a pawn, so your training will be the most intense one here, Hisashi began. In a fight, what you promote into could mean either victory or defeat. Ready? Yes, Izuku nodded. Good. But before that, D-Drag, can you hear us? Yes, I can. The majority of the group jumped in shock. Did Izuku's hand just talk? Asia asked. It did, Yumi confirmed. Wait, you could have talked to me like that this whole time? Izuku asked his hand, or rather, the glowing green gem that appeared on it. Just recently, as I explained when we first met. Everyone, meet D-Drag, the Welsh dragon, Hisashi said. Specifically, his spirit that dwells within the boosted gear. The Red Dragon Emperor, Rias muttered in awe. I never imagined we'd get the chance to speak with someone like that, Akino said. For this exercise, D-Drag, could you do me a solid and prevent my son from using his boosted gear? Hisashi requested. Ah, I see what you're planning, D-Drag replied. Very well. Wait, what? What are you planning? Izuku nervously asked his dad. You'll see. Now, try going boosted dragon, Hisashi instructed. Without my boosted gear. You won't need it, Hisashi said as he got his baken ready. By the way, this is trial by fire. In the blink of an eye, Hisashi dashed to his son's side ready to attack. Izuku managed to block it with his own training sword, but Hisashi's attack didn't end there as he continued with relentless barrages of his baken. Everyone watched in worry as Hisashi wasn't pulling any punches, even with his own son. I can't keep this up. How do I go boosted dragon without my sacred gear? Come on, think, Izuku thought as he struggled to block his father's attacks. And then, he had an epiphany. Wait, when it first happened, I didn't really will for it to appear. It just came out naturally. After blocking another one of Hisashi's attacks, Izuku relaxed his body and mind. Then, as Hisashi attempted to strike again, Izuku leaped into the air to dodge and stayed there. Everyone was surprised and impressed as Izuku managed to clear Hisashi's trial. However, unlike before, Izuku's scales were now emerald green instead of red and covered his left arm as well. As Izuku looked over himself, he felt rather proud. I did it. Good, now we can move on to the next phase of your training, but before that, Hisashi said. Then, he did what no one else expected. On Hisashi's arms and the sides of his face, green dragon scales appeared. A pair of green dragon wings grew from his back, and lastly, he grew a pair of black dragon horns on top of his head. What? Dad? Izuku was shocked at seeing his father's transformation, even more than his own. He saw his dad have wings while in his dragon veil armor, but now he had a dragon-like appearance outside the armor. The orc was also shocked speechless, not only seeing Izuku, who at least had a dragon-type sacred gear, but Hisashi, who said he didn't have any sacred gear, assume a dragon mode as well. Remember what I said about supernatural background being part of the Midoriya family? Hisashi asked. Yeah, wait, Izuku began. Are you saying? Yep. We're part dragon, Hisashi confirmed, to the surprise of everyone. Izuku's a dragon? Rias's eyes widened in shock. No way, Yumi exclaimed. I can't believe we didn't notice, Akino said. I did not see that coming, Itsuka said, speaking for pretty much everyone. For real? Ajiro shouted. Is it true? Asia asked. My mind is blown, Mina said. Even Kaneko had a look of surprise. D-Drag, did you know about? I did, Gremory. The dragon within Izuku's sacred gear answered. Izuku's dragon heritage is 116th dragon, but it laid dormant for a long time until it awakened. The boosted gear probably helped with that, Hisashi explained. As for me, I kept my dragon side suppressed for the time, saving it for a big reveal, which was just now. Ha! And the looks on their faces were great. You really know how to blow the minds of young adolescents, D-Drag said. Then why did you wait until now to tell us? Yumi asked. There was no immediate need to explain before, but now with the rating game, things changed, Hisashi replied. Anyway, we'll talk more about our dragon heritage later. Right now, it's training time. Yes, sir. Throughout the morning, Izuku focused on improving his skills using promotion. He did leg exercises with Yumi to strengthen his leg muscles, which were important to a knight's speed, some more combat training with Kaneko to learn how to use a rook's strengths effectively, and learned a bit about using magic from Akino, though that wasn't really his strong point. In addition, he did some sacred gear training with his dad. Then, once noon rolled around, everyone took a break for lunch. After that, Hisashi summoned Izuku and everyone back to the training field. Okay, now that we've had lunch and a good rest, let's resume training, Hisashi said. But for you, champ, I've arranged a special trainer who should be arriving soon. Really? Who? Izuku asked, though he didn't have to wait long for his answer. The sound of heavy flapping was heard in the air as everyone looked up to see a large shadow partially blocking out the sun before the figure descended upon them with a dull thud. The figure was a dragon who stood at a towering 50 feet with huge wings behind his back. His scales were dark purple around most of his body save for his belly, inner portions of the legs, and his long tail, where they were colored beige. A pair of large yellow horns grew from his head as the dragon glared down at everyone below with his red eyes. Long, sharp yellow nails formed his claws, and he wore a loincloth and black pauldrons that extended down to his elbows. A dragon? Izuku screeched. Sup, old man Tannen? Hisashi casually greeted the dragon. Tannen? Rias gasped. You actually got the Blaze Meteor Dragon to come here. Tannen and my family go way back, up to our dragon ancestor, Hisashi said. I was actually introduced to Tannen when I was Izuku's age, thanks to my old man. Oh wow, Yumi muttered. I haven't visited the human world in a long time, Tannen spoke, his powerful voice echoing. But it's been even longer since we last spoke, D-Drag. I agree, D-Drag said, a little eager to speak with a fellow dragon. Good to see you, Tannen. Before he was reincarnated into a devil, Tannen used to be a dragon king, Hisashi said. Not only that, he's also ranked ultimate class, a rare feat for reincarnated devils, Rias added. A devil and a dragon, Itsuka muttered. That's quite a combination. Tannen bent down and sniffed the air around Izuku, making the boy flinch. So you're Hisashi's progeny. Yes, I smell the dragon BLD inside you, Tannen noted. All right, son. Here's the plan. You'll train with Tannen in a special training area for the next hour. Hisashi then took out a white cube and tossed it on the ground, forming a giant rift that could fit even Tannen. The handy part? Time moves way faster. To the point 1 month, there will only be 1 hour here. So basically, I can get a month's worth of training in just an hour in the real world? Izuku asked for clarification. Precisely, Hisashi said. Hold on, why just those two? Shouldn't we all go? Rias asked. Occupation limits. Sorry, Hisashi said. Not to mention, I've only got one use of that pocket dimension. Otherwise, we would all be training there already. Then Hisashi turned to his son. Before you go, let me be blunt. Training with Tannen's gonna be training from hell. I know this because I was trained by Tannen myself thanks to your grandfather. I won't say this is for any of that building character nonsense. This is to ensure you're prepared for the rating game. So, are you up for it? Izuku then turned to Tannen, and then to Rias. He vowed that he'd do everything he could to save her from the arranged marriage. He had to get stronger, not just for himself, but for her. Yeah, I'm ready. Let's go, Izuku declared. Good, Tannen then picked up Izuku by his shirt. Make sure you train my son's body and mind, along with his sacred gear. Oh, and his dragon traits too, Hisashi requested. Right. Leave it to me, Tannen said before stepping through the rift, which closed afterward. Okay, while we wait for them to come back, let's focus on our own training, Hisashi declared. Asia, you're with me. We'll work on your quirk. Right, Asia slithered forward as Hisashi equipped his armor. Whenever you're ready, begin, Hisashi instructed. Asia brought her hands together and her hair rose before changing into vines. She then shot a few vines forward to catch Hisashi, but he sidestepped to dodge. Not only that, he actually grabbed onto the vines and then dashed toward Asia before circling around her. Asia was unable to react in time as she was wrapped up in her own vines. "I can't move," Asia muttered. "Not bad, but there's still plenty of room for improvement. For example, we could work on your reaction time so that if an enemy gets a hold of your vines, you can detach them faster and resume the attack. Also, increasing the vine's strength would also prevent an enemy from taking control of them like I just did," Hisashi recommended. "Okay," Asia said as she managed to untangle herself. Next up, Akino. "Now, I know that magic is your specialty, but keep in mind, you still have Rook and Knight traits that come with being a queen," Hisashi began. "Now imagine, in battle, your opponents expect you to use some kind of magic attack, but instead, you fake them with a physical attack like a punch or a kick." "Oh, that's very clever, thank you, Mr. Hisashi," Akino said. "Of course, we're not discounting your magic, either. Also, about your lightning, you're not using it to its full potential." Akino's eyes widened slightly, and then she suddenly frowned. "What do you mean by that?" she asked with a dark tone in her voice, to the surprise of Asia, Itsuka, Mina, and Ijiro. Hisashi also noticed it, but didn't say anything. "For one, there's more you can do than just electrocuting and tormenting opponents. Some lightning users I've met can give shape to their attacks or use electricity to manipulate their environments. And for variety, try combining it with other elemental spells you know." "Ah, I'll keep that in mind also," Akino said, suddenly intrigued. "I wonder how Izuku's doing," Asia wondered. Boom! "Ah!" Izuku bellowed as he was sent flying through the air, right into the face of a rock, thanks to a large explosion. As he got to his hands and knees, he groaned in pain. "Oh, Dad wasn't kidding about training from hell," Izuku grumbled as he wiped the ash and sweat from his face as he looked back on the day's training. "It involved lots of running. Lots and lots of running." "You've improved somewhat today." D-Drag chuckled slightly. "Now that you've mastered more of your dragon heritage, let's work on your sacred gear," Tannen said. "Our time is nearly halfway up, so how about I raise the difficulty?" "Huh?" Izuku realized Tannen was preparing another attack and spread his wings to get away as far and fast as he could. Crap, crap, crap. 40 minutes have passed since Izuku and Tannen departed, and in that time, Yumi and Kaneko each had their turns sparring with Hisashi, and he had a few things to say about their fighting style. For Yumi, he noted that she tended to rely too much on outspeeding her opponents, which left her predictable to opponents that could outspeed her. He also advised her to think more about her defenses. And for Kaneko, he advised her to avoid tanking every attack thrown at her, as a Rook's defense was formidable but not limitless. In addition, he gave tips on how to move faster despite being a Rook. Now, Hisashi was training Itsuka, whose current outfit consisted of a yellow bikini top with teal zigzag stripes, a frilled teal miniskirt with a gold ribbon, frilled teal detached sleeves around her upper arm secured by a white ribbon, teal sandals. Lastly, her hair was tied into twintails with green ribbons. "Nice. Aquarius form, huh?" Hisashi said. "Yeah, in this form, I have powers over water. I can attack with water or use it to form barriers and other constructs." "Good. Now, let's begin," Hisashi said, equipping his armor, the Homurasaki, and a baken. Itsuka followed through by taking a combative stance. Itsuka made the first move, forming an orb of water and throwing it at Hisashi, who made the Homurasaki blaze with green flames as he sliced the water sphere, causing the halves to evaporate. Hisashi then swung his baken, but Itsuka formed a water barrier to stop him. Itsuka then formed another ball of water, but this time she slammed it into the ground, causing geysers to erupt in Hisashi's direction, forcing him to back off from the chain of geysers before using his dragon's breath quirk to breathe out a stream of fire that collided with a geyser, causing a cloud of steam. As Itsuka tried to see through the fog to find Hisashi, she suddenly flinched as the tip of a baken was pointed at her face. It was Hisashi who had found Itsuka first. "Nice job. You showed plenty of skills with this form. We'll continue to work on it, along with your other forms." "Yes, sir," Itsuka replied. It was the last night in the pocket dimension, and Izuku was currently taking a drink from a stream near his camp. After a long day of hauling ass running from Tannen's attacks, the cold water gave him some much-needed relief. One look at his reflection in the water, and Izuku could tell the intense training left its mark on his body. He was currently bare-chested while his torn-up shirt and tracksuit jacket lay beside him. He could see how his chest looked sturdier and more muscular thanks to burning off the small bits of fat. His arms had similarly become more muscular as well thanks to the training. He also started growing horns as well, though they were hardly noticeable right now. Wow, I can't believe my body's changed so much after training with a former Dragon King, Izuku observed as he inspected his new body. Be proud, partner, D-Drake stated, his gem glowing on Izuku's left hand as he spoke. Not many can say they've survived against Tannen's method of training. Thanks, Izuku replied as he grabbed his shirt and returned to his camp. It's my last night here. Hard to believe it's only been about an hour outside, while I spent almost a month here. It is hard to believe, D-Drake commented. The Mystic Keepers sure have access to some incredible resources. Izuku made himself a nice warm campfire to unwind and relax. My body's gonna ache for months, I know it, he added with a groan. If you think that's bad, you probably don't want to think about what Rias Gremory likely has in mind for you, D-Drake said with a chuckle, causing Izuku to sweat drop. Back at the villa, Rias was receiving suggestions from Hisashi on how to make better use of her power of destruction, such as compressing the energy into fast-shooting bullets or other forms. Then, everyone noticed the large shadow of Tannen in the air. On Tannen's back, Izuku was very relieved to see the Gremory Villa again after the time he spent training with Tannen. As Tannen descended, everyone watched in awe as Izuku jumped from Tannen's back before slowing his fall using his green dragon wings. Izuku, I can hardly recognize you, Asia said, admiring Izuku's new muscular physique. I'll say, Itsuka said, also looking over Izuku. You look so manly now, Midoriya, Ijo said. You could grate cheese on those abs, Mina said. I take it that the training with Tannen went well, Rias asked, though she too was secretly admiring Izuku's new muscles. Well, I survived, Izuku said, scratching the back of his head. All the stares he got from the girls made him a little nervous. Thanks for the help, old man, Hisashi thanked Tannen. You're welcome, Hisashi, Tannen said. I'm leaving now. I look forward to the raiding game. Then, Tannen flapped his massive wings and soared into the sky, flying straight through a magic circle. Now then, Rias called. Let's get back to training. The next 8 days came and went rather quickly, and everyone had improved significantly. Izuku had learned more about swordplay, combat styles, and using his demonic power. Asia managed to get better at handling her vines and reacting more quickly to detach them to prevent enemies from using them against her. Yumi managed to become faster and less predictable in her movements with fewer openings, also doing some defensive training in her inflated state with a little help from Kaneko. Speaking of Kaneko, she managed to become more agile despite being a rook, and she learned to incorporate a few martial arts techniques into her attacks. Itsuka trained with a few more of her celestial regalia forms, especially the ones that would complement her big fist quirk. Akino experimented with her lightning more, particularly using electromagnetism. She also took part in physical training once every often. Rias managed to develop more efficient and creative ways to use her power of destruction. Even Ijiro and Mina managed to strengthen their quirks somewhat. With everyone having improved their abilities, the time to put it to the test against Riser and his battle harem drew closer. That night, Izuku was still awake in the living room reviewing his notes, trying to formulate the plan for the raiding game. He also checked the hero news. There was no mention of All Might teaching at UA. Yet, he was so engrossed in his work that he didn't notice when someone came down the stairs. Izuku? The voice of Rias snapped him out of his concentration. Oh, hey Buchu, Izuku said. I was just checking the hero news and studying my notes. She was wearing a pink nightgown and a pair of glasses on her face, and she held a book under her arms. I see. Anything interesting going on? Well, there was talk about MT, Lady, Kamui Woods, and Edgeshot possibly forming a hero team together. Oh, I also tried looking up any mention of All Might teaching at UA, but there's nothing yet. I see, Rias responded. I was also shocked to hear that he'd be teaching at UA, though I probably won't really get to see him since I'm not in the hero course. You're a fan of All Might too? Izuku asked. Who doesn't like All Might? Rias asked rhetorically. Well, villains, maybe. But yeah, I admire him too. Though probably not to the same extent that you do. Izuku blushed at being reminded of his almost childlike admiration of the #1 hero. Anyway, I need to chat with you about something, so will you follow me outside? Out on the veranda, Rias looked over Izuku's notes. I see. This is pretty amazing. Certainly better than anything I could come up with. Oh, really? Thanks, Izuku said. That being said, we're up against Phenex, a devil, but he is also a marquis counting among the 72 pillars. We've got our work cut out for us. His ability is the same as the beast his family is named after. Immortality, Rias revealed. He's indestructible. He regenerates immediately following an attack. That's why his win-lose ratio is so flawless, excluding the ones he lost on purpose out of respect for the other team's families. Ever since the rating game was put into effect, the House of Phenex has dominated the playing field. Oh wow, Izuku muttered. Changing the subject, are you really against marriage, or is it Riser? Riser, Rias answered. Not to sound stereotypical or cliché, but like any other girl, I dream of getting married one day, but I want it to be with someone I choose. The proposal was made to the heiress of Gremory. Because of my title, I am not ever recognized as Rias. The House of Gremory will always come before me. Rias got up and walked across the railing of the veranda as she turned to gaze at the moonlit sky. I've learned to adjust to it and make my decisions accordingly. Make no mistake, my title is something I will always take pride in. But I want to find someone who loves me as Rias, not for how my status can improve their life. Otherwise, they may as well marry the house. I understand that history is not in my favor, and the idea of love may just remain a dream. But it's one I'd like to keep. Well, I think you shouldn't give it up. You have the right to love whoever you want, Izuku said. The Gremory name doesn't define you. It's just an empty title, and anyone who thinks otherwise doesn't know you. Thank you, Rias smiled. Then she noticed a notebook titled, Hero Analysis for the Future No. 13. It was slightly charred, but she thought not much of it as she picked it up with curiosity in her eyes. What's this? Izuku winced. Wait, that's... Wow, you wrote all this? Rias asked, skimming through the pages. It's practically a guidebook about heroes. Izuku turned red in embarrassment, looking down as he rubbed his head. Well, that's... Oh, what's this? Empty? Lady is sexy, is she? You naughty boy, Rias said, her tone hiding none of her amusement. No, that's not what it means, Izuku waved his arms sporadically. When MT Lady made her debut appearance, she sorta stole the thunder from Kamui Woods and other heroes and well, she, showed off her assets for extra attention. He said, trying not to sound demeaning. I heard that heroes, both men and women, often use their looks for publicity, and that's pretty much what she did. I'm only half convinced because I'm hearing it from you. You better pray that Kaneko doesn't see this. Izuku let his head hang, refusing to give her the satisfaction of a response, though he couldn't help but think that Rias in her teasing voice kinda sounded somewhat like MT. Lady. But don't get me wrong, your notes are very impressive, Rias continued. I mean, it's probably natural for a fanboy to take notes about his idol, but this is a few bits short of a total hero encyclopedia. I get the feeling there's a reason it's so detailed. Well, I just thought that maybe if I studied different heroes, learn how they made it, how they work with their pros and cons. Then maybe I can figure out a way to become a hero myself. Izuku smiled nostalgically, taking the notebook from Rias and looking through some pages. Considering there's plenty that rely more on support items or other gear rather than their quirks, I figured that maybe as a quirkless kid, I can do it too, though in hindsight, it's probably easier said than done. Putting the crispy notebook down, he turned his gaze back to Rias. And then things changed when I met you, Akino, Yumi, Kaneko, and everyone else. Learning about my boosted gear, I have the chance now, thanks to you. I'm happy to have met you. He then reached for his bag, searching for another notebook. Here's something I've started working on recently. He took a notebook out from a bundle of them and handed it to Rias with a bashful look. I admit, I was kinda embarrassed. Also, after Master Tannen's training, it sort of slipped my mind. But hey, better late than never, right? Supernatural analysis for the present no. 1. Rias read aloud, slowly pulling the cover back to read through the pages. The notebook contained a list of all of Rias's peerage abilities, along with their strengths and weaknesses. In addition, there were also notes on their other friends such as Itsuka and her sacred gear, along with some members of Sona and Leisha's peerages. It even listed the enemies they fought such as Stray Devils, Rainair, and the Belios gang. Impressive. This is so detailed. You've pretty much recorded all the important details, Rias said in amazement. Yeah, I just wanted to do my best to make sure we're prepared to our fullest, Izuku said. And it's not just me. Akino, Asia, Yumi, Kaneko, and also Kendo. We all don't want you marrying Riser either. We all plan on giving it our best in the rating game. Rias smiled wider. Izuku, come here. She reached her arms around him and pulled him into a hug, resting her head against her pillow-like chest. Buchu, what are you? Izuku whispered, blushing. SHH, let's stay like this for a while, Rias whispered, nuzzling her face against his hair. Izuku slowly nodded as he relaxed in his master's grip, feeling a little more comfort in her arms. Hey, Izuku? Yeah? I'm happy we met, too. Riser Phenex. The day for the rating game had arrived. However, it wasn't due to start until midnight, so Rias ordered everyone to use the time to rest and prepare. Upon arriving back home, Izuku, Asia, and Hisashi were greeted by a literally tearful welcome from Inko. Luckily, Izuku's newly developed muscles were deceptively hidden well by his clothes, so he didn't have to worry about his mother asking how he buffed up so much in just 10 longer for Izuku days. It also turned out that Inko had special surprises for Izuku and Asia. Inko had a hero costume for Izuku, admitting that she accidentally got a peek at his notes before and made it as an apology for not being more supportive before, promising to cheer him on all the way from there on. For Asia, she got her a green flower pendant, which she decided to make part of her own costume. Izuku spent the day watching recordings of Riser's past rating game matches provided by Rias to formulate their attack plan against him. Out of Riser's servants, his queen, Ubaluna, seemed to be the most dangerous opponent with her specialty in explosive magic that earned her the nickname Bomb Queen, a well-earned title considering her explosions could even kill Rooks with just one shot. Her explosions are different from Kaken's. Akino might be our best shot at facing her, and maybe me and Buchu as well. The others might have trouble taking hits from her. As for Riser himself, he had two major advantages over Rias's team. First, his immortality, which healed any damage he took, making it easy for him to wear down the enemy combatants before taking them down. Second, his numbers. He had a full team of servants who were certainly no slouches in battle. From what I see, the most important step to victory might be taking down the queen. Of course, beating the others is important too. That way Riser won't have any backup. But even if Riser's left all alone, it won't be easy, Izuku noted. Even so, we've all trained hard for this. Failure is not an option. Later that night, Inko was currently sleeping while Izuku, Asia, and Hisashi were still awake. There was only one more hour before the rating game. Izuku was currently in his room, waiting. I've been training for this like my life depended on it. He reminisced on the last 10 days. There's no way in hell I'll let them win. Knock, knock. Izuku, are you there? Asia's voice came from behind the door. Do you mind if I come in? No, please do. Asia then entered the room, wearing her church clothes, along with the pendant Inko had gotten for her. Wow, haven't seen you wear that in a while, Izuku said, noting Asia's choice of clothes. I thought my habit might make me feel more confident. Rias said she was okay with it as long as I felt comfortable. Plus, I was planning on using this as my hero costume, Asia said. So I just wanted to know what you thought. I think you look pretty good, actually, Izuku replied. You're sweet. I'd like to stay here with you, do you mind? Izuku nervously nodded. No, not at all. Asia then went over to take a seat on Izuku's left side, pressing her body against his. She's so close, Izuku started flustering as he tried to stay calm. Then he noticed that Asia had a worried look on her face. I'm a little bit nervous about the battle, Asia admitted. Still, as long as I have you here next to me, I know everything will be fine. Is it all right with you, Izuku? If I just stay here like this for a while? Izuku nodded with a smile, and Asia took what time she had left to enjoy the warmth. This isn't so bad. Then, Hisashi came into the room. You kids ready for the game? To be honest, I feel like there's still a lot more that could be done, Izuku replied, though it could be due to what's at stake. Not surprising, Hisashi said. However, there's a reason why I had you go through sword training, so that you'd have enough experience to wield this. He then handed Izuku the homuraski. You're letting me use your sword? Izuku asked. Yep. The homurasaki isn't just a sword of fire. It can also cut and devour flames. A perfect weapon to use against the fire-wielding Phenex, wouldn't you agree? You can store it in your boosted gear until needed. At the clubroom, everyone had already arrived by the time Izuku, Asia, and Hisashi entered. Everybody was doing their own thing as they waited for the game to start. Yumi was inspecting one of her swords. Kaneko snacked on some sweets while slipping on combat gloves with cat paws on them. Akino and Rias were sipping tea, the former sitting on a couch while the latter was at her desk, maintaining an appearance of complete calmness. Itsuka, dressed in a teal gi, was practicing some combat stances. Ijiro and Mina were also there, though, like Hisashi, they would only be spectators. Everyone's here. Good, Rias said, setting her teacup down. Then, the club door opened as Sona, Tsubaki, Leisha, and Chacha entered. Sorry if we're interrupting, Sona said. No, please, come on in, Sona, Leisha, Rias said. I'm glad you could make it, Akino greeted. Wow, I didn't expect to see you all here, Izuku said. It's our Rias's first rating game. We wouldn't miss an event like this for anything, Leisha said. Well, I promise to do everything in my power to make it interesting for you, Rias said. Then, a white magic circle appeared, and Graphia emerged from it. It's almost time. I hope you're ready for this, my lady. Yes, we're ready whenever you are, Rias replied. Graphia nodded and took out a clear crystal case containing a bishop piece inside. Here is your substitute piece. All you have to do is charge it with a small amount of your power, then give it to the person of your choice. I understand. Rias then sent a bit of her magic into the bishop, and it started glowing red. Itsuka. Itsuka then received the piece before pressing it into her chest, causing it to be absorbed into her body. It's done. Lady Itsuka is now your substitute bishop for the duration of the rating game, Graphia informed. Yeah, but I don't feel any different, Itsuka said while feeling herself. In time, you will feel its effect, Graphia assured before turning back to Rias. In a few moments, we'll use this magic circle to transport you and the rest of your team to the battlefield. And where exactly is the battlefield? Izuku asked. In a neutral alternate space created just for the game. Because it's not real, we have full license to do some damage, even burn it to the ground if we want, Akino replied with a sadistic chuckle. Great, that doesn't sound scary at all, Izuku thought sarcastically. Glad she's not a villain. We'll be in the student council room, Sona said. We'll be cheering you on. Good luck, Leisha added. Thanks a lot, Rias smiled. If I was a betting girl, I'd say you're going to beat that scumbag 7 ways from Sunday, Sona added before taking her leave. I'm rooting for you and everyone, Izuku. I know you'll win, Chacha said. Yeah, thanks for your support, Chacha, Izuku thanked, and Chacha smiled before heading out with her master. There's something I forgot to tell you, Graphia said. I thought you'd like to know. The great devil Lucifer will be watching the game. Rias responded with a sigh. Oh, brother dearest. Wait, Buchu's big brother is the devil Lucifer, Izuku asked. That's right. Lord Cersei's Lucifer, also known as the Crimson Satan, is her brother, Yumi chimed in. He's also one of the 4 great Satans who became the current rulers of the underworld after the original Satans died in the Great War. He and the other Satans led us through a dark time, saving the devil race from ruin. But by receiving the title of Lucifer, he forfeited his Gremory name. Well, that explains why Rias is the next heir to the House of Gremory, Asia noted. Izuku couldn't help but be shocked by this. He already knew Rias's family held prestigious status, but it was overwhelming, to say the least, that her older brother was one of the rulers of the underworld alongside 3 others. It's time, everyone. The group all turned to the maid as she gestured to the magic circle. Then let's go, Rias announced. Good luck, kids, Hisashi said. Give Riser what he deserves, Ijiro added. Kick his ass, Mina cheered. The Gremory group nodded, and, with resolves of steel, they walked into the magic circle. Once inside, they were bathed in the crimson light of the magic circle as they vanished one after another. When the light cleared from Izuku's vision, he looked around only to see that they were seemingly still in the clubroom. I think our magic circle's broken, Asia said, thinking the same thing. Yeah, we're still here, Itsuka added. Then, an announcement came from the school speakers. Your attention, please. Welcome everyone, my name is Grafia. I am a servant of the House of Gremory. I will be your referee during today's match. To create the battlefield you'll be competing in, I took suggestions from both Lady Rias and Lord Riser. This place is an exact replica of UA. Hi, an educational institution in the human world. What does that mean? Izuku asked. Just take a look outside, Rias replied. When Izuku opened the window, he could see that the sky was no longer black as night, but rather a mystical green with auroras. The sky, Asia said. This is an alternate space, Yumi informed. It might look like it, but trust me, we're not at UA anymore, Akino added. Each team has been given an area that will serve as its home base. Lady Rias, your crew will be in the Occult Research Club headquarters at the club buildings. Meanwhile, at Riser's home base, he was making himself comfortable, snuggling with some of his girls. Lord Riser's home base will be located in the principal's office in the main building. Pawns will be promoted if they can make their way to the home base of the opposing team. Good luck to all. With Grafia's announcement concluded, Team Gremory started discussing their plans. Rias was the first to contribute, stating how Riser's regeneration played a big part in his strategies, and if they could keep some of their best cards well hidden, Riser would be unlikely to change his mo. Then it was Izuku's turn to speak. He explained that it would be best to take out Riser's servants first before going after the king. It would be hard enough to deal with Riser's immortality, and the last thing they needed was the enemy catching them off guard. The pawns especially would need to be dealt with to prevent them from reaching their base and promoting to queens. Once all of Riser's team has been dealt with, they could face off against Riser unimpeded, though getting past his regeneration would be the tricky part. As for their defense, Yumi and Kaneko would head to the surrounding woods to lay traps, while Akino set up illusions around their home base. Then there was the issue of Gym Gamma, the building closest to the clubhouse, which could serve as an easy access route to home base. So, Izuku and Itsuka would meet up with Kaneko there after she was done with her current task. Rias opted to remain at the base and act as commander to relay instructions and provide updates, and since Asia was their healer, her staying safe was crucial, so she was to stay by Rias. Rias then handed everyone a red energy marble. These'll help us communicate during the battle. Everyone then put their marbles in their ears. All right, devils, let the game begin. Upon hearing Grafia's announcement, Team Gremory steeled themselves for the fight. Those failures don't deserve to stand on the same field as us. Show no mercy, break their spirits, shatter their pride, and force them into submission. If I don't crush her, this is meaningless. Riser ordered. Let's get started on those traps and barriers, Akino said. Right, Kaneko and Yumi nodded, and the queen, Rook, and knight left the room, leaving Rias, Itsuka, Asia, and Izuku in relative silence. The gentle bishop was sitting across from Izuku, hands in her lap as she continued nervously fidgeting in anticipation of the fight. All this talk of fighting is starting to scare me. Try to relax. Trust in Rias and Midoriya's plan, Itsuka advised. Yeah, I guess you're right, Asia nodded. Oh, I just remembered. I brought these. She reached into her robe and pulled out a cross and a bottle. You still have that? Rias exclaimed, the skin of every devil in the room crawling. And is that holy water? Asia fidgeted her fingers nervously. I never actually got rid of them, and I figured they could be useful. As much as Rias wanted to scold Asia for keeping a cross and holy water, she decided against it. You're not hurt, are you? A bit numb, but I'm okay. Rias sighed, before staring at the church items on the table. She hated to admit it, but these would definitely be useful. I'll hold on to them, Itsuka, the only non-devil in the room, offered. Thanks, Asia said, handing over the cross and holy water. Then, Rias went over to the sofa and sat down. Izuku, come here. For what? Izuku asked. Rias put a hand on her thigh. I want you to put your head on my lap. Izuku gasped, his eyes widening as he flinched. Just get over here already, Rias ordered. Izuku took a deep breath to calm himself down before slowly laying his head on Rias's lap, while Asia stared at the scene with a pout, unable to hide her jealousy. Izuku, I cast a little spell on you. It's time to unlock it. Izuku's expression changed from flustered to curious at Rias's words. She then placed a hand on his head. Thump. What is this? What's happening to me? Izuku felt a sudden rush of power flowing into his body. It felt like something inside him had just been set free. When you became a devil, I told you it used 8 of my pawn pieces, she told him. But what I didn't tell you was how much power you'd received. Wait, what? Izuku asked. If I had unleashed everything all at once, your body wouldn't have been able to take it. So I cast a spell to keep your powers at bay. Because of the spell, your abilities come to you in small, manageable stages. What I just did was release another portion of your power. This is just the beginning of what you can do, Izuku. But in order for your body to be able to handle your boosted gear, on top of the full extent of your power, we had to get you in shape and make sure you were strong enough. There's a good portion in there that you're just not ready for yet. Asia turned her body sideways with her hands together to pray. There I was being jealous when all along Rias was just trying to help him. Dear God, please forgive me for being so stupid and letting my awful jealousy get the best of me. And then the headache came. Oh. Do your best out there. Take those pawns out, Rias instructed. I won't let you down, Izuku vowed. Good. Now let's get moving, Rias said as she stood up. Izuku, Itsuka, go help Kaneko. She should be at Gym Gamma. Some of Riser's servants are likely already there. Right, Itsuka, and Izuku nodded. But before we go, one more thing, Itsuka suddenly said. What is it? Rias asked. We already know that Riser has 2 major advantages in number and immortality, but I think he also has another advantage, over you specifically, Itsuka said. He knows you. What do you mean? Rias asked. He knows that you don't want to marry him, so I bet he's going to use that to get inside your head and set you up for defeat, Itsuka explained. Yeah, that does sound like a Riser move. Threatening the opponent's pride and causing them to act recklessly, Izuku added in agreement. Rias hated to admit it, but that did sound like something she would fall for. So what do you suggest I do? Try to keep your pride in check and ignore his temptations. But if you must fight him, have someone else by your side, other than Asia. She might be an amazing healer, but she can't keep healing you indefinitely, while Riser can regenerate as much as he wants. So you're gonna want another fighter as backup, Itsuka said. Can you promise that? All right. I swear I won't act recklessly, Rias promised. If that's all, then get out there. Show them what you can do. Right, Izuku and Itsuka quickly ran outside. Good luck, guys. I'll be praying for each and every one of you, Asia said. Izuku and Itsuka soon caught up to Kaneko right outside Gym Gamma. They snuck in through the back door to try and be stealthy, but the gym was practically empty with no hiding spots. It was also dark inside, but that quickly changed as the lights turned on. In the center of the gym were 4 of Riser's servants. Smells like Gremory filth, one of them taunted. Look what we have here. She sent us a pawn, a rook, and a bishop. Izuku remembered them from the first time he saw them as well as the footage Rias had given him. I'm Mira, and I'm a Phenex pawn. The first to introduce herself was a girl with blue hair and light brown eyes. Her hair was styled with 4 short pigtails, 2 of them pointing up and the other 2 pointing down. The front of her hair had split bangs going across her forehead, with side bangs framing her face. Her outfit consisted of a white haori with a red obi, worn under a red happy coat. She had bandages on her forearms and shins and back guards over her hands. She wore a pair of zori under her feet. In her hands, she held a wooden staff. I'm Zulan, a Phenex rook. The next was a well-endowed girl who appeared to be Chinese, with shoulder-length black hair and blue-green eyes. Her hair has 2 Chinese-style buns on both sides of her head, while the front features bangs that form a slight V-shape across her forehead. Her outfit consists of a navy blue kipao with gold accents, a sash around her stomach, black arm guards on her forearms, and black, low-heeled shoes. The kippao was open at the chest area, giving a view of her melons and cleavage, as well as a split down the left side to show off her long leg. Lastly, there were the twins, both of whom looked like middle schoolers. They both had turquoise hair with yellow ribbons tied to one side of their hair opposite to one another, likely to tell them apart. They were dressed in gym uniforms, white t-shirts with blue accents, black leggings, and blue sneakers over knee-high socks. They also wore orange wristbands on their right wrists. They also had red and blue gym bags on their back. "I'm Isle and I'm a pawn. My name is Nell, and I'm also a pawn." "The Rook chick. She could be a big problem for us," Kaneko said. "Really?" Itsuka asked. "Based on her power level, she's got the skills of a queen." "That's no good." "Still, we can't give up," Izuku said as he summoned his boosted gear. "Boost? I'll try my luck with the Rook," Kaneko said as she took up a fighting stance. "I'll fight the twins," Itsuka said, holding up her Aquarius key. "Dress form, Aquarius." "Guess that leaves me with Mira," Izuku said. Elsewhere, 3 of Riser's pawns were attempting to navigate through a thick fog in search of the orc building. The first of the young women, Shuriya, had long, pale blue hair, amber eyes with purple eyeshadows around them, and tan skin. She wore a bikini made up of a metallic underwire brassiere and a silk loincloth that exposed her sides, a silver-colored tiara, and neck rings with a ruby and blue gem respectively. Other accessories include ruby orb earrings, a snake-themed bracelet on her upper arm, and a transparent pink veil across both her arms. The other 2, Marion and Burent, were dressed as French maids. Marion had shoulder-length light brown hair and dark brown eyes. Her French maid uniform was a buttoned, sleeveless one with a white lace design, along with a standard maid headpiece, cuffs, and a white half apron to go with the set. She also wore light gray tights. Burent, on the other hand, had shoulder-length brown hair and had a maid's uniform that was also sleeveless but exposed her cleavage with a white lace design on the edges, a maid headpiece, half apron, and forearm-length fingerless gloves. "Damn, this fog is so thick, we won't be able to see anything," Burent said. Then, a red magic circle appeared a few meters away. In the blink of an eye, glowing spears shot out of the circle, but the pawns were as quick to dodge them as well. A trap? Did they really think that something that lame would work? Shuriya wondered in amusement as she flew through the air. "The Gremarys are dumber than I thought," Burent mocked as she and Marion were in the air together. "A cute trick from a rating game virgin," Marion said as she landed. Then she cast a spell that disabled a trap on the path ahead. "Do you think the Gremarys really believe these stupid traps are going to slow us down at all?" Eventually, they made their way to what seemed to be the orc building. "That's their home base, isn't it?" Burent asked as they all got closer. However, what they didn't realize was that there was a near-invisible tripwire in their path until it was too late. The moment the wire broke, a boulder pendulum was set loose, swinging toward the women, who were able to easily avoid it. However, that was only the first part of the trap as then, a dozen swords rained down on them from above. The maids and showgirl barely managed to avoid them, though their clothes weren't as lucky. "Okay, that was better, but still not," Burent said, only for all the swords to suddenly start glowing. Boom, boom, kaboom. The swords exploded, and the pawns were sent flying by the shock waves, crashing into the nearby trees, though it was not enough to take them out. "At least we can," Shuriya turned toward the club building, only for it to fade away into mist, revealing it was just an illusion. An illusion? "They caught us off guard with those weak traps from before," Marion shouted in realization. Then, the 3 pawns saw Yumi Kiba walking out of the woods. "I really should thank Izuku and his dad. Their ideas for exploding demonic swords was ingenious." Ha! Zulan's feet were lit with flames as she threw a spinning kick at Kaneko, who ducked to dodge. However, Zulan was not done yet as she unleashed some more kicks and threw in a couple of palm strikes as well. Then when Kaneko was about to strike from behind, she kicked upwards, striking Kaneko and ripping a bit of her uniform. Kaneko wasn't too damaged by the attack and continued to hold her ground as Zulan resumed her barrage of kicks, before managing to grab her leg on the last kick. She then pulled on the leg to drag Zulan closer before landing a right hook on her left cheek. Zulan stumbled back a few feet from the blow, rubbing her sore face. "Nice one." But then, Kaneko came charging in, ramming into her, and knocking her down on her back. "Who the hell are you? Tell me," Zulan demanded as she began getting up. "I'm Kaneko. Suck it." Itsuka shot 2 water orbs at the twins, who sliced through the attacks with chainsaws of all things. "Slice her up, slice her up, slice her up," Isle and Nell chanted with rather disturbingly cheery grins as they charged to try and cut up Itsuka, who managed to sidestep the chainsaw blades as the twins took turns swinging at her. As they tried swinging at the same time, Itsuka changed her form into water to slip behind the twins and fired a jet of water from each hand at the twins, causing them to stumble back a bit. Izuku faced off against Mira, dodging a staff thrust from her. Mira took a step back, spun her staff, and swung it in an arc right at Izuku's head. He leaned backward to cause the attack miss, before throwing his fist forward at Mira, who used her staff as a shield to block. "You're not that much of a beginner as I thought," Mira commended. "Perhaps I can let loose more." The ends of her staff then became lit with flames. "I appreciate it," Izuku replied. "Boost. Blade." After activating another boost, Izuku withdrew the Homurasaki from the boosted gear. Izuku and Mira then charged at each other with their respective weapons. Izuku went for a downward slash, but Mira blocked it with her staff before throwing a kick at Izuku. Izuku recoiled a bit from the kick but managed to recover in time to block another staff strike from Mira. "She's good," Izuku thought as he backed up. "I suppose this is a good time as any to try out that new move I've been working on." Izuku then re-engaged Mira, dodging a thrust of her staff before swinging the Homurasaki down full strength to cleave her staff into 2. As Mira was in shock over her staff being broken, he hit her with a palm strike on the shoulder, knocking her down. Unbeknownst to her, a magic circle briefly appeared over the spot Izuku struck. "Kendo, switch," Izuku called out. Itsuka understood and backed up from the twins before tagging out with Izuku so that he would face the twins while she faced Mira. "It doesn't matter who we're facing," Isle said. "We're still gonna slice you," Nell declared. Both twins then jumped into the air with their chainsaws raised high. However, Izuku was prepared. Explosion. With all his boosts unleashed, Izuku unfurled his wings and took off toward the twins. Flying at a rapid speed that their eyes couldn't keep up with, he tagged Isle on the shoulder and Nell on the back, a magic circle appearing on the areas they were hit. The twins were hurt by the blow and fell to the ground, but they were still in the game. "We can't lose to this dweeb," Isle said. "If we do, Lord Riser's gonna be pissed off," Nell added. Mira, deciding to take out Izuku first, left Itsuka behind while lighting the broken halves of her staff in flames. At the same time, the twins revved up their chainsaws and ignited them as well. "It's time to die," Mira shouted. "Let's slice off his balls," Isle and Nell shouted. Izuku, despite being ganged up by 3 opponents, was not worried. "Bring it on, here's my special move." Itsuka was surprised at what Izuku just said. Zulan, who was currently being held in a lock by Kaneko, was also shocked, letting out a gasp. Kaneko herself showed a somewhat shocked face. "Now, rupture!" Izuku snapped his fingers, and the magic circles reappeared on Mira, Isle, and Nell's bodies. When Izuku had tagged the girls earlier, he also sent a small portion of his demonic power into their bodies. And the finger snap just now was a trigger. The bits of Izuku's power inside the pawns reacted and pressure started building up before they exploded, causing damage from within. Mira, Isle, and Nell screamed as they all collapsed. While Mira seemed able to continue, albeit injured, Isle and Nell seemed to be down for the count and vanished in glimmering light. 2 of Lord Riser's pawns retired. Graphia announced. "No, Isle, Nell," Mira shouted as she barely managed to stand. "Hey, remember me?" Mira turned to see Itsuka's enlarged fist coming her way. In her injured state, she was unable to dodge, and the giant punch sent her flying through the air and into a wall, leaving spider cracks behind her. She barely let out a cough before collapsing and disappearing in blue light like her teammates. 1 of Lord Riser's pawns retired. Zulan gave out a growl. Her teammates had already been taken out in such a short time. "Damn." 3 of Lord Riser's pawns retired. Zulan's eyes widened in shock at the announcement. For Izuku, Itsuka, and Kaneko, on the other hand, that was good news. Nice, Izuku grinned. Looks like one of our traps worked, Izuku guessed. Kaneko simply smiled at this. The three then noticed Zulan staring at one of the windows. Kaneko then twisted the lock even harder, causing the enemy Rook to regain her focus as she struggled to break free. She eventually found her opportunity as a well-aimed kick caused Kaneko's hold to weaken, and she slipped out. The Chinese devil then started throwing out palm strikes at the Gremory Rook, who ducked underneath and swept her leg under Zulan, knocking her off her feet. Zulan quickly got up, only for a geyser, courtesy of Itsuka, to erupt beneath her, sending her into the air. Zulan barely had time to look ahead as Kaneko, who had jumped high into the air, pulled both her fists back before bringing them down on her, sending them both crashing down to the floor. Smash! The floor was utterly wrecked by this, and when the dust cleared, Kaneko was still standing while Zulan vanished in blue light. One of Lord Riser's rooks retired. Great job, Kaneko, Izuku grinned as he ran up to his teammate, only to turn red and swiftly turn 180. Kaneko was confused by his sudden behavior and looked down to see bits of her bra and panties showing, causing her to slightly blush. Smart choice, Kaneko muttered. Right, Izuku said, still looking away. As Kaneko started fixing her clothes with magic, Izuku and Itsuka started looking out the same window Zulan was focused on earlier. Hey, you noticed Zulan was looking at something, right? Izuku asked. Yep, though I have no idea what, Itsuka replied. Okay, I'm done, Kaneko said, and Izuku turned to face her. So what was that new move anyway? Oh, it's something I've been secretly developing since camp. I was partly inspired when Akino caused the water in a bottle to suddenly freeze and burst. Also from Kekken. That was also the first time I used it on living targets, and I wasn't sure how that would work compared to inanimate objects. I'm just glad I didn't hurt them too badly, even if they were our enemies. Izuku began another mumbling storm. Okay, you can stop now, Kaneko interrupted. Right, sorry. Meanwhile, Itsuka spotted something outside. It was a woman flying on wings, and judging by the glow on her staff, she was apparently aiming an attack at them. Guys, look out, Itsuka screamed, running towards them. Kaneko and Izuku were alerted by her panicked tone. As Itsuka ran up toward them, she formed a water dome around them. Izuku barely had time to look outside and notice the woman that Itsuka spotted, someone he recognized all too well, right before a blinding light enveloped the building. Kaboom! Yumi looked up in shock from the sound of the explosion. She could see a thick layer of smoke rising into the sky and wisps of embers from where she stood. She could tell where the explosion had occurred thanks to having visited UA many times before, but more importantly, who were there at the site of the explosion? Everyone. Don't worry, Yumi, Rias said through the comm link. Grafia didn't announce anything about them being retired, so they should still be in the game. Still, I better send Akino to check. The only one who could have done that is Riser's queen. Right, understood, Yumi nodded. Good, now you have your own job to do. Be careful, Rias ordered. Yes, ma'am, Yumi obeyed. Please, everyone, be safe. Among the burning wreckage of Gym Gamma, there were Itsuka, Izuku, and Kaneko lying on the ground. Fortunately, they didn't seem to be hurt that badly. Itsuka was the first to get up. Everyone okay? I'm fine, Izuku said, lifting his head. Kaneko? Peaky, Kaneko said. Looking up, she suddenly frowned. We have company. Itsuka and Izuku followed her gaze and narrowed their eyes. Up above them, levitating with wings, was a busty figure holding a staff, slowly descending before them. Is that? That's right, Kaneko confirmed. Riser's queen, Yubaluna. Yubaluna gave a condescending smirk. I'm surprised you three managed to survive my signature attack. I figured it would be easier to finish you all off after our comrades sacrificed themselves to tire you out. The enemy is most vulnerable during a celebration after all, she said. Then her smirk turned into a frown. The user of Celestial Regalia, you managed to protect yourself and your teammates with a barrier. However, I guarantee that you'll not be so fortunate a second time. Then, she turned to Izuku. As for you, boy, I also wasn't expecting for you to be a dragon. She brandished her staff around and pointed it at the Gremory members. Care to see how long you three will last against me? Izuku frowned as he looked up at Yubaluna before turning to his friends. Kaneko, Kendo, go and help Yumi. Kaneko looked at him, aghast, realizing what he was planning. Are you stupid? She's a queen. You won't last a minute. I'll be fine, Izuku reassured them with a small smile. Thanks to Master Tannen and Kaken, I have plenty of experience dealing with explosions. Is that a challenge? The opposing queen hissed. And you're telling me you've faced the Blaze Meteor Dragon himself? Ridiculous. Izuku turned to Yubaluna with a determined glare. Believe what you want. Kaneko grimaced but reluctantly nodded. Itsuka, however, didn't seem to be budging. Sorry, but you're not getting rid of me that easily. Like it or not, you're not facing her alone. Izuku sighed and relented. Okay, thank you for offering to help, Kendo, he said, causing her to grin. Kaneko then ejected her wings and flew off. Yubaluna paid her no mind. Allowing your comrade to escape while you two stay to fight me, Yubaluna said. Very admirable, foolish, but admirable. Still, the two of you can never hope to defeat me. Izuku said nothing, instead clenching his fist. Itsuka brought her hands together and fired a big jet of water at Yubaluna. Then Izuku followed by leaping into the air with a punch ready, but the Phenex Queen blocked both attacks with a barrier. Nice try, she mocked before sending Izuku crashing down with an explosion. Luckily, he was saved by a big water sphere from Itsuka. I told you, you can't win. As Izuku and Itsuka glared at Yubaluna, Akino suddenly flew down from the sky. Well, this is exciting, she said. Akino, Itsuka shouted. Izuku, Itsuka, I can take care of this trash. You two go on ahead, okay? Akino said. Is that so? How exciting, Yubaluna said. I'll be fine, guys, just go, Akino said. Whatever you say, just get her, Izuku said as he and Itsuka ran off. I've been wanting to fight you for what seems like ages, Priestess of Thunder, Yubaluna said. Oh, have you? That's sweet, but the pleasure is truly mine, Bomb Queen, Akino replied. Both queens' aura flared to life as they prepared to battle one another. Boom! As sounds of thunder and explosions rang behind them, Izuku and Itsuka ran through the woods. Eventually, they spotted Kaneko and Yumi hiding behind some bushes, spying on the enemy players. Taking extra precautions not to be seen, they quietly made it to their friend's side. How are you guys doing? Izuku asked in a whisper, almost startling Yumi and Kaneko. I managed to take out 3 enemy pawns with a trap. That exploding swords trick was brilliant. It made my job almost too easy. Although, now our enemies are more cautious because of it, Yumi whispered. What about Riser's queen? Kaneko asked. Akino decided to take her on so we could flee. Hopefully, we can get back there to help her, Izuku said. Doesn't look like our traps will work anymore, Kaneko said, looking on in concern. At this rate, we're gonna have to fight. Then suddenly, a voice demanded their attention. We know you're out there, servants of Ria's Grimoire. I am Carlamine, a knight in the service of Lord Riser. I challenge you, Knight of Grimoire, to a duel. Yumi's eyes narrowed as she stood up. Where are you going? Itsuka hissed. Yumi gave them a calm smile. A knight just challenged me to a duel. As a fellow knight, I must respond. Guess we better go with you. Kaneko closed her eyes and sighed. Thanks. And also, sorry, Yumi said. It's fine. Here, this might come in handy, Izuku said as he once again withdrew the Homurasaki from the boosted gear and handed it to Yumi. As Yumi held the green fiery sword in her hands, she could feel the power within even while sheathed. I appreciate it, Izuku. Then, the four headed out of their hiding spot. Out in the clearing, there was the knight who challenged Yumi, along with 6 others. I am Yumi Kiba, a knight in the service of Lady Ria's Grimoire, Yumi announced as she pulled out the Homurasaki. I sure hope you're ready. I've been looking forward to battling another knight. Can't wait to get started. Very well said, the Phenex Knight, Carlamine, nodded. En garde, Knight of Ria's Grimoire. The female knight then set her swords ablaze in flames. She had light brown hair, green eyes, and quite an endowed body. She wore a headband that wrapped multiple times around her forehead, and her outfit was a full silver armor that seemed to be a cross between a European knight and a Japanese samurai. With a chestplate, gauntlets, greaves, hip plates, and shoulder guards, she was equipped with a broadsword and a dagger, both of which were held with brown belts slung across her hip. with the sword slung on her left hip and the dagger located behind her hips. The two female knights then rushed at each other with their swords as they dueled in a fierce clash that one could not keep track of with the naked eye. "Awesome," Izuku muttered as he watched them fight. "Guess it'd be rude to get in the middle of it." "Plus, you'll be busy." Izuku turned to see a woman with short, light brown hair with 3 red highlights across and gray eyes. The feature that stood out the most with a plain white mask that covered the right side of her face. Her outfit consists of a black jacket and matching jeans. The jacket has wide shoulders and a wide collar and features 3 leather straps on both her arms. It's also slightly open, revealing her rather large melons and cleavage, and cuts off at her midriff. Her jeans have a section on her right pant leg that's cut off to reveal some of her thighs and rear end, and also features 3 leather straps on her calves, just below the ankles, and 2 extra straps on her right pant leg to keep it in place, while also sporting black fighting gloves and boots. "Oh, that Carlamine," Izuku now turned toward the princess-like girl who resembled Riser. "Her head is filled with nothing but swords, swords, swords. It's freaking ridiculous. She was way too bothered by those other pieces we sacrificed, too. You ask me, she needs to get it together. Anyway, I'm Riser Phenex, a bishop in service of Riser Phenex, my older brother. My name is Isabella, and I am a rook in service of the Honorable Lord Riser Phenex," the masked woman introduced herself. "Cirrus, Knight of Lord Riser," said a tall young woman. Her hair was long and black with a tint of blue, and she had brown eyes. Her hair looked like it had 5 thin ponytails spiraling out around her head, which were held up by a golden hair accessory on top of her head. Her outfit consisted of a white top with black accents that was modeled after a Chinese cheongsam, red shorts, and armored, knee-high boots with matching gauntlets. In the center of her top was a diamond-shaped hole that gave everyone a clear view of her melons and cleavage. She was carrying a giant, 2-handed Zweihänder. "I am Mihi, Bishop of Riser Phenex." The girl had long black hair, blue eyes, and an angelic face. She was dressed in a black and blue kimono that went all the way to the ground, a red sash around her waist, and a white tabi socks on her feet. Her shoes were traditional slippers. "We are Nai and Lai, Lord Riser Phenex's pawns." The 2 cat girls spoke in unison. The cat girl on the right had pinkish hair, and the one on the left had light bluish hair. Their cat ears stuck out of their hairs and their tails were swaying from side to side behind them. They both wore boxing gloves that were similar shades as their hair, and rather provocative sailor uniforms that revealed their abdomen, shoulders, and underboobs, along with yellow ascots and short black skirts and shoes that matched their hair color. Again with the twins, "Huh?" Izuku noted. It was becoming even more clear that Riser was trying to include as many stereotypes as he could in his harem. "Think we can take 'em?" Kaneko asked as she cracked her fingers. "You bet," Izuku nodded. She then revealed another golden key, this one bearing the symbol of Leo. Dress form, Leo. Itsuka's outfit changed into an elegant, frilled, black ball gown bearing the image of a golden lion's head. It was also slid up to her left leg and tied with a gold sash that sat around her hips. A golden trim decorated the bodice as it curved inward toward her bust. She also wore a black, frilled choker around her neck, black detached sleeves around her arms, and black heels with matching gray tights. Additionally, her hair was tied up in a quaint bun decorated with a black flower. Seeing as how their opponents introduced themselves, it seemed right for the Gremory team to do the same. "I'm Izukumidoriya, Lady Rias's pawn." "Kaneko Taoju, Lady Rias's rook." "I'm Itsuka Kendo, a substitute bishop fighting in the name of Lady Rias Gremory." "Let's make this quick. Isabella, take the pawn. Lai, Nai, you handle the bishop. Cirrus, Mihi, you have the rook." Ravel ordered. "Yes, milady," the women stepped forward. Meanwhile, Riser sat comfortably at his base, confident that soon enough, Rias would come to challenge him herself. She would futilely try to cause him some damage only for it to heal immediately afterward, and after she exhausted herself, he would finish off Rias and whatever backup she brings with her. Maybe if Yubaluna defeats the Priestess of Thunder quickly, she can join him to bring even more pressure on Rias to crush her spirit even more. Yes, nothing would stop him from making Rias his own. Boom, boom, boom. Akino screamed as she was sent tumbling across the ground, getting knocked around by several fireballs. Her Miko outfit was all torn and burnt thanks to the heat and fire. On the other hand, Yubaluna looked to be in perfect condition, having healed herself with phoenix tears. I admit, I never expected the Priestess of Thunder to be that strong, but you were bound to run low on magic eventually. Lucky I happened to have this on me. She held the now empty bottle of phoenix tears before discarding it. With that, your only chance to defeat me is lost. Ara ara, Akino said with a forced smile. You think you've already won? Just look at yourself, Yubaluna gestured arrogantly. You can barely stand and your magic must be almost depleted. You don't even have enough power to defend yourself. I won't need power for what I'm about to do, Akino said defiantly. You see, during the past 10 days, I realized my lightning abilities weren't exactly at their full potential because I was missing something. Care to take a guess? Pray tell, what would that be? The Bomb Queen asked. Akino grinned. Creativity. Then, lightning gathered in Akino's hands. But rather than shooting it at Yubaluna, Akino made the electricity spread all around the area. Then she created tons of iron sand, which got picked up by the electricity and began floating in the air like a swarm of flies. What? What the hell is this? Yubaluna shouted, baffled by the scene around her. It's electromagnetism. Let's see how you handle my lightning plus the iron sand created by my quirk. Akino Himejima. Her quirk, iron sand. She can generate iron sand. As long as she has plenty of iron in her diet, she can make lots of them. Then, at Akino's command, the iron sand gathered up to form into long, sharp spikes, all pointing towards Yubaluna. Yubaluna quickly formed a shield around herself to block the iron spikes, but they just kept relentlessly jabbing and stabbing at the shield until cracks started to form. Before long, Yubaluna's shield was destroyed, forcing her to take to the air to dodge. However, she couldn't keep avoiding the sharp projectiles and soon, a few grazed her body, drawing a bit of blood and shredding her clothes. Yubaluna then started countering by blowing up several with her explosions, but that mattered very little as Akino's electromagnetism quickly reformed the spikes before they were sent after Yubaluna all over again. Oh yes, I'm loving that sound. Scream for me more, Bomb Queen. Ha 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 ha. Akino laughed as she made arm gestures to control her iron swarm. Psycho bitch, Yubaluna screamed as she aimed an explosion at Akino, only for a metallic dome to form around Akino to protect her from the explosion. Then, Yubaluna was knocked down by another iron spike. By this point, Yubaluna was even worse off before she used the Phoenix Tear to heal herself the first time. The sharp barrage had left its mark not just on her body, but her clothes as well. The chest portion of her dress was reduced to strands of fabric barely holding onto each other, and her dress barely covered her legs. Well, it's been fun, but I can't afford to waste any more magic power, Akino said as she stopped her lightning, causing all the iron sand to fall to the ground. Yubaluna, barely mustering the strength to stand, aimed an explosion at Akino, but Akino used the night speed that came with her queen piece to zip away from the explosion before reappearing right in front of Yubaluna, to her shock. She then clenched her hand into a fist and delivered a left hook to her opponent's gut. Normally, a simple gut punch wouldn't even come close to killing Yubaluna, but all the damage she had sustained beforehand ensured that that last blow would be the coup de grace. You beat me with a punch? Those were her final words before she fell into unconsciousness, disappearing soon after in a white light. Lord Riser's queen retired. Akino then dropped on her butt as exhaustion kicked in. I really owe Mr. Hisashi for his advice. I'm not sure I could have won otherwise. Akino, are you all right? Rias's voice came through the comms. Never fear. All I need is a little rest, and I'll recover just fine, Akino replied. Good. Because I want you back at home base so Asia can heal you. Really? But what about the others? They can handle themselves. Besides, now might be a good chance for us to go on the offensive. Back at his base, Riser heard the announcement of his queen's retirement. He couldn't believe it. His queen was defeated by Rias's queen. Sure, he didn't expect Yubaluna to come out unscathed, but she also had a phoenix tear with her. Once she recovered, she should have been able to take down the Priestess of Thunder without much trouble. But then, he quickly regained his composure. Sure, he no longer had his all-powerful queen by his side, but that still wouldn't stop him from humiliating Rias with his immortality. and even if Rias brought backup, they would all find themselves outmatched as they failed to leave any sort of damage long enough to take him down. Enjoy it while you can, Rias. Soon, you and your group of children will fall before Riser. And after that, we will finally be together as man and wife. Carlomene swung her flaming sword with all her might, cleaving right through Yumi's sword. My holy eraser, Yumi exclaimed. Unfortunately for you, that attack doesn't work against someone like me, Carlomene boasted. Oh really? What about this one? Freeze. Yumi created Flame Delete, a sword of ice. And this, she then unsheathed the Homurasaki. You've got to be kidding, there's no way you have two sacred gears. And that other sword, I can already tell it's a unique one. Where'd you get it? Carlomene asked. It was lent to us with your team in mind, Yumi answered. Is that so? Then bring it. Clash. Yumi blocked Carlomene's attack with Flame Delete. Suddenly, the flaming blade froze and turned to ice, the flames included, before it shattered, falling apart like glass. Carlomene quickly discarded the broken blade before taking out a tanto. No matter, I still control flame, and wind, and life. She then ignited the dagger like a torch, as do all from the House of Phenex. Carlomene's attack smashed Yumi's Flame Delete, but Yumi was hardly fazed as she simply discarded the broken sword and held the Homurasaki forward, which glowed green before sucking up all of Carlomene's fire. No way, how is this possible? Carlomene questioned. Then, the Homurasaki lit up with flames of greater heat and intensity as Yumi swung it upward, slashing Carlomene and causing her to scream in pain. Then, a vertical cut appeared on her chest as she fell to her knees. Hee hee, guess I've lost, Carlomene chuckled bitterly. I sincerely hope we can duel again, perhaps under different circumstances. I would like that, too, Yumi nodded. Then, Carlomene was taken away in silver light. One of Lord Riser's knights retired. Whoa! The sound of Izuku's scream caused Yumi's head to turn to see Izuku being sent flying backward. Yumi quickly moved to intercept Izuku and ballooned up, managing to cushion his impact with her inflated navel, allowing Izuku to bounce off safely. Phew! Nice save, Yumi, Izuku thanked. No problem, Yumi replied as she deflated. You heard it right? Seems Akino managed to beat Yubaluna. Yeah, and that means I've got to do my part too, Izuku said. Boost. With another boost adding to his strength, Izuku activated Boosted Dragon and charged at Isabella. You managed to bounce back quickly. You're a lot better than I expected, Isabella commended. Though I'm curious, are you an actual dragon or do you have some dragon-like quirk? Part dragon, to be precise, Izuku replied. Well, it seems our lord made a miscalculation. But no matter, let's battle. Red Dragon, Isabella challenged. Izuku aimed a punch at Isabella's face, but she sidestepped to dodge and countered with her own punch, which Izuku dodged as well. Isabella then threw an uppercut which he avoided by taking to the air with his wings. Then, when she jumped to strike from above, he crossed his arms to brace himself as the hit sent him back to the ground, though he managed to land on his feet. This lady's a rook, meaning she hits harder than the pawns. I gotta beat her fast. As Isabella rushed in for another punch, Izuku dodged her fist and tagged her on the shoulder. Oh, was that supposed to hurt? Isabella asked. Not that. This, Izuku withdrew his hand and prepared to snap his fingers. Rupture. The instant Izuku snapped his finger, the bits of his energy inside Isabella's body detonated, dealing internal damage and causing her to collapse on one knee. And now, Dragon Shot. Izuku formed a ball of green energy in his left hand and fired a green beam from it, sending Isabella flying back before she disappeared. One of Lord Riser's rooks retired. Isabella, Ravel said in worry. Truthfully, that wasn't the first time in the game that had her anxious about their chance of victory. It all started when she heard the announcement of Yubaluna's defeat. The opposing team had yet to lose even a single member. Yet, their team had already lost their ace in the hole, and it wasn't stopping there. Nai and Lai lunged at Itsuka, readying their kicks. However, Itsuka enlarged her hands to block their attacks before grabbing them by the feet and slamming them on the ground. The catgirls quickly got up and surrounded Itsuka from the sides as they started assaulting her with punches, forcing her on the defensive, blocking and dodging. But then, Izuku quickly regained control over the fight by unleashing a flash of light, blinding the cat twins. "My eyes," Lai shouted as she covered her eyes. "So bright," Nai exclaimed as she did the same. "Regulus, double jumbo fist," Izuku shouted as she shot out both her fists, enhanced with a lion-like aura made of light, and right at the last moment before contact, enlarged her fists to do more damage. Nai and Lai were sent flying by the force of Izuku's giant punches, and right as they landed, they were enveloped by blue light and disappeared. Two of Lord Riser's pawns retired. In the meantime, Kaneko was in a deadlock against Cirrus, while Mihi buffed her with support magic. The enemy knight tried to pin Kaneko down with her Zweihander, but the white-haired girl's resistance was strong as well. "I don't plan on failing Riser," the knight said. "Same," Kaneko retorted. "I don't want to disappoint Rias either." Cirrus grinned as she used her sword to create strong winds to push her back. Kaneko, however, moved faster than Cirrus had anticipated, and when Cirrus swung the sword again several times, Kaneko dodged them all with agile movements. As Cirrus tried and failed repeatedly to strike Kaneko, Kaneko eventually grabbed hold of the blade and with a display of strength, snapped the blade in two. "My sword!" Cirrus exclaimed, but that left her open for Kaneko to get behind her and put her in a lock before throwing her at Mihi. As the Phenex Knight and Bishop were trying to get up, Kaneko leaped into the air, did a flip, and came crashing down on top of them, sending out a dust cloud. When the gathering of debris particles died down, Cirrus and Mihi were shown to be knocked out on the ground before disappearing. One of Lord Riser's knights, one of Lord Riser's bishops, retired. Ravel stood flabbergasted. She bore witness to the last few retirements, but she still was in shock over how their opponents took down the entire team minus herself and her brother that easily. She now realized just how severely they underestimated the players under Rias's command, and their win streak was in jeopardy. Then she noticed Izuku looking at her and nervously took a few steps back. So you're Riser's sister?" Izuku awkwardly asked. "Yeah, so what about it?" Ravel asked. "I joined my brother's peerage partly because I had nothing to do, and also because Riser wanted a little sister type in his peerage." Izuku blinked once. That explained all the unusual fashion choices of Riser's servants. "Your brother has issues." "You don't know the half of it," Ravel sighed. She bit her lip nervously as she looked at him. "You're not going to fight me?" "Well, honestly, you don't really seem eager to fight," Izuku replied. "And I'm guessing you want to fight even less after what our team just did." Ravel tried intimidating him with a stare down, but when it failed, she relented. "Yeah, I know I can't beat you, Red Dragon. The only person you're gonna need luck against is my brother." Ravel then turned toward the main school building, several yards away. Kaboom! "What was that?" Izuku shouted. That came from the school building. It sounded like an explosion. There was even thick smoke rising into the air. Izuku then tried calling Rias and Asia through the comlink. "Buchu, Asia, come in. What happened?" "Izuku," Asia's voice came from the comlink. "I'm with Buchu and Akino. They're fighting Riser, but we need help. Oh no." Then the connection was severed, right as another explosion rang at the school. "Asia, Asia," Izuku called into the comlink. He didn't hear Graphia announcing Asia's defeat, so he at least knew she was still in the game. Not that stopped him from worrying. "Sorry to say, but it seems my brother has Lady Rias right where he wants her," Ravel said, grabbing everyone's attention. "Granted, we did underestimate your abilities, but if your king loses, so do you." Izuku gritted his teeth. She was right. Even though Rias went to challenge Riser with backup, it seemed that wasn't enough based on what he heard from Asia's end. Should Rias lose, then that meant the whole team would as well, and her peerage would be forced to submit to Riser's authority. There was no way in heaven or hell he was letting that happen. "Everyone, Rias, Akino, and Asia need us. Let's go." "Way ahead of you," Yumi said, forging another flame delete. "And I think you might want this back." She then returned Homurasaki to him. "Let's cook his goose," Kaneko said, bringing her fists together. "Agreed. Let's win this thing," Itsuka nodded. Izuku took another glance at Ravel, who seemed surprised that they still had that amount of determination despite the bad situation their leader appeared to be in. "You're not worried?" Ravel asked. We're fighting for Buchu, so losing's not an option. That's why. Fried chicken, Kaneko said. Buchu, Akino, Asia, we're coming. And with that, the four ran for the duplicate UA, leaving Ravel behind, who just realized something. Wait, did she just call me fried chicken? So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 5. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Pleiades 1754 on fanfiction.net. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.